Sorry.
Good evening. I'm now calling to order the June 16th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Could I please, who do I know out there? I do. I just can't see them all anymore. Mrs. Wilson, would you like to lead us in the flag salute or the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you like to read it or can I? We acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Chumash, Tongva, Fernandino, Tataviam, and First Nations on which we are learning, educating, and living. Ms. Clark, can you take the roll now, please?
Member Frentner,
Present.
Member Agakanian,
Here.
Clerk Weisberg,
Present.
Vice President Ferguson,
Present.
and President Tabbitt.
Present.
Thank you.
The Superintendent's Office has been informed of the sad news of the passing of recently retired employee Susan Foy, whose daughter Elizabeth King works for the district as the school office manager of Providencia Elementary School. Susan began working for the district in 1995 as a school aide at Jefferson Elementary School. She became an instructional aide in 2000 and worked with severely impaired students for the rest of her career. Susan also worked at Bret Harte and Burbank High School. From 2017 until her retirement in May of this year, Susan worked with the special education students at Horace Mann. She was a valuable asset to the SEED program and was known as someone you could count on. She had a positive demeanor and enjoyed her work with preschool special education students. Our thoughts and prayers are with her family and friends at this difficult time. Services will be held on Monday, June 20th at 11 a.m. at the Valley Funeral Home, 2121 Burbank Boulevard, followed by a reception at the Foy residence. In lieu of flowers, the family asks that you please make a donation in Susan's name to Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Tonight's meeting will be adjourned in her memory. The board met, item number 5, in closed session. No action was taken. It was informational purposes only. Number 6, adjustments to the agenda. Anyone? Mrs. Dr. Weisberg.
I would like to pull 8A. I don't know if I can do it just for this, or I would like to pull it ideally for the summer so that I
Okay.
can go back to the drawing board and find better ways of sharing all the great information about our schools.
Right, we can do that.
Thank you.
Also, moving up the superintendent's comments so that you can make some special announcements.
Thank you, President Tabbitt. I would like Dr. Paramo to first come to the microphone to introduce some recently new hires.
Good evening, Board President Tabbitt, distinguished board members, Superintendent Dr. Hill, and members of the community. My name is John Paramo. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, and my pronouns are he, him, his. President Tabbitt, it was the last board meeting that I had the opportunity to announce our Director of Burbank Adult School and the FACS program, and I was able to read an amazing, impressive biography of our new director, Juan Norguera. I have the pleasure to have him here in person so that you can meet him, and I'm going to ask him to come forward so that he can say a couple words.
Good evening, President Tabbitt, Superintendent Hill, district staff, and member of the audience. It's with great pleasure that I am taking this opportunity of leading the adult education department here. It's opportunities that we need to offer to our community. It's opportunities that we need to give to our students, because without opportunities, we're not going to have a very productive community. We want our students to have, adult learners in particular, to have those opportunities, because most of the time we are asked to work hard. But without opportunities, we're not going anywhere. So thank you for this, I'm going to be redundant, the opportunity to lead this department, because I think we're going to make the difference. I have the experience and the confidence that we're going to make a change in the community, because we are here to make the difference. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to joining this amazing team. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
I'm going to be up here a little while. It is my honor, my privilege. I'm very excited to introduce to you the brand new, proud principal of Burbank High School, Ms. Julie Markison. Julie, if you can come forward. Julie Markison began her career in education by teaching 7th grade English language arts at a middle school in Iowa. After relocating in Los Angeles in 2000, she taught English at Venice High School, where she also served as the school's testing and magnet coordinator until 2015. From there, she served as a house principal for 3 years at Santa Monica High School and for 4 years as an assistant principal at Culver City Middle School. Julie earned her bachelor's degree in English at the University of Iowa, her teaching credential at Iowa State University, and her master's degree in educational leadership from Cal State Northridge. In her spare time, Julie enjoys spending time with her fiance and stepdaughter, as well as traveling, reading, and writing. She and her family recently moved to Burbank, and they are excited to be part of the vibrant and diverse community. Julie is thrilled to have an opportunity to serve as Burbank High School's new principal, and she can't wait to experience the well-known Bulldog spirit and energy firsthand. It's my honor to introduce Julie.
Thank you so much. Good evening, President Tabbitt, Superintendent Hill, district staff, and members of the audience. I am so honored and thrilled to have this opportunity to lead Burbank High School and be a part of this community. As it was said, I am a new resident of Burbank, and I've already felt the genuine spirit and the congeniality of the community, and I just can't wait. I've heard so many wonderful things about the district and about Burbank High School, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. So I look forward to seeing all of you soon and hitting the ground running. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Our next introduction is for the position of Alternative Ed Administrator for the Independent Learning Academy, and it is my honor and privilege to recognize Laura Anderson. Laura, if you can come up. Laura comes from the West Side Union School District in Palmdale and South Pasadena District. She has been a middle school English teacher for 8 years and an assistant principal for 2 years. Laura has 2 master's degrees, one in secondary school education and another in education administration. Laura has been a Burbank local her entire life. Her and her husband live in Lakeview Terrace. They enjoy hiking, going to the beach, and trying new restaurants. It's my privilege to present to you, Laura.
Good evening, President Tabbitt, Superintendent Hill, district staff, and members of the audience. It's my joy to stand here with you all tonight. I am so excited to work in Burbank School District. I'm excited to see all of you here. I have a lot of experience in education that I look forward to plugging into our Independent Learning Academy and just giving back to the students and parents and a lot of familiar faces. And thank you for tonight.
We have a new assistant principal of athletics and activities for John Burroughs High School, and I'd like to recognize Ms. Tori Caseo. Tori, if you can come up. Tori is a Burbank native and proud graduate of BUSD schools. She graduated from San Diego State in 2013 with a BA in Spanish. She then attended Pepperdine, where she received her master's degree in education and her single subject teaching credential. She started her teaching career during grad school in 2014 at John Muir Middle School, teaching one period of Spanish 1. In 2015, she began teaching Spanish at Muir full-time. In her time at Muir, Tori served as elective department chair, PBIS leadership team member, LGBTQ plus club co-advisor, and co-founder of the Culturally Responsive Education Team, which aims to help teachers at Muir in their journey toward culturally responsive and equitable teaching. Last summer, Tori served as a summer school administrative TOSA at John Burroughs High School. This December, she received her master's degree in educational administration and credential from Cal State LA. During the spring semester, Tori worked as the interim assistant principal of athletics and activities at Burroughs. Tori prioritizes professional and personal growth through the lens of equity and social justice. And in her new role, she plans to continue to work hard at making schools safe and meaningful for all students. She is proud to be the third Latina administrator in her family. Her pronouns are she, her, and ella in Spanish. Miss Tori Caseo.
Good evening, President Tabbitt, Dr. Hill, district leadership, community members. I am so honored and grateful to keep working in this beloved community of mine, and especially in a new role as high school administrator. I'm so proud of how far we've come in the years that I've been able to work in the district, and what I really respect about everybody in the room is that we all acknowledge there's still ways to go, and so I'm really excited to be on that team working towards equity and excellence. And I'm also super excited to return to Burroughs because it's a wonderful school with wonderful people, and I'm excited to go back to rejoin the team officially. And also, fun fact, my mom's first admin gig was at Burroughs, so I'm extra excited about that too. And thank you again, and I hope I make you proud. Thanks.
President Tabbitt, we have a new assistant principal at Dolores Huerta Middle School, and I'd like to recognize Nicole Cody. Nicole, if you can come up. Nicole Cody is a Los Angeles native. She grew up in the San Fernando Valley, attending schools in LAUSD and graduating from Birmingham High School in Van Nuys. Nicole moved to San Diego, where she attended San Diego State University. She got a bachelor's degree in liberal studies and continued on to receive her master's in curriculum and instruction. Nicole's first year of teaching were spent working in San Diego Unified School District, where she taught elementary school. In 2010, she returned to Los Angeles, where she spent a few years teaching in private school before returning to public schools. She was hired in BUSD in 2015 at Bret Harte Elementary, where she started as a classroom teacher. Nicole went back to school to get her master's in administration from Cal State University, Los Angeles, and started to pursue more roles in leadership. She has had the opportunity to serve as the curriculum specialist at Bret Harte for the past 4 years. Nicole is looking forward to continuing her path in leadership in her new role as assistant principal of discipline at Dolores Huerta Middle School, with the support of her colleagues, husband, and son by her side. Nicole Cody.
Good evening, President Tabbitt, members of the board, Superintendent Hill, district staff members, and the audience. I just want to thank you, all of you, for the support and guidance that you've given me thus far. It's exciting to be transitioning to the secondary level, leaving elementary. I have a lot to share and be a part of this new community, but still in the community of Burbank Unified, and I look forward to all that I can bring moving forward. So thank you.
One last announcement, and that is we have a new assistant principal at Luther Burbank Middle School. He was not able to be here with us today, but it's Mr. Brian Ludwig, and Brian Ludwig was the Title I coordinator at Luther for the last few years. He did really, really well and impressed us in his interview, and he will be the new assistant principal at Luther Burbank Middle School. Thank you.
Good evening, President Tabbitt, Vice President Ferguson, Board Member Superintendent Hill, the Cabinet, and the educational community of Burbank Unified School District. It is with great pleasure tonight that we announce the selection of our new principal at George Washington Elementary School, Mrs. Laura Vineyard. Laura? Mrs. Vineyard has served the Burbank Unified School District community for 27 years. She taught math, my age, 27 years. She taught math, science, drama, and served as the math department chair before becoming a teacher on special assignment for English language development and Title I. Those work experiences are certainly a good fit for the Washington principal. She has served as assistant principal at Burbank High School, and most recently as the assistant principal at Luther Burbank Middle School. Mrs. Vineyard has a bachelor's degree in theater arts, journalism, and as well as a master's degree in educational leadership, all from Cal State University, Northridge. She holds a multiple subject credential, as well as her administrator credential, and an English language development authorization. Mrs. Vineyard is married with 2 daughters who went through the Burbank Unified School District system from kindergarten through 12th grade. Mrs. Vineyard's breadth of knowledge and experience will add to the success of Washington Elementary School. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Laura as our new principal.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening, President Tabbitt, Dr. Hill, district leadership. I'd like to invite you all to come to Washington anytime. Come in, say hello. I'd love to show you around. I'm absolutely thrilled to have this opportunity. I want to send a big thank you to Mrs. Brandy Young, who's been a fabulous principal these last few years, and it's definitely an honor to take over in her footsteps. I only hope that I can do her justice and continue all the amazing work that she and her school have been doing. I want to wish everyone else in the room good luck. Nicole, our paths are crossing, middle, elementary, middle. But I know that the experiences that I have had through my years working in Burbank Unified have made me extremely well prepared to take this opportunity, and I'm just excited to see what happens. So come visit Washington, and I look forward to meeting all of you there soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hill, Dr. Paramo, Dr. Knappich, yeah, all the doctors, as Dr. Weisberg said, for your introductions to our newest members of the BUSD family. It's really nice to have you all here and taking time out of your busy day or your summer vacation, as it may be, to join us and start, as somebody said, hit the ground running. So that's kind of education as we know it, right? It just never seems to stop. Yeah. Just hitting the ground. Well said, Mr. Ferguson, well said. So thank you. And my other colleagues wish to say anything, please feel free. Go ahead,
I'll
sir.
hop in. Thank you. Welcome. There's a lot of you, so welcome broadly. To those of you I don't know, I really look forward to getting to know you. Some of you are taking on some new roles for us and kind of expanding new programming. Welcome. It's great to have San Fernando Valley natives as well, so you tend to understand a little bit of these communities, which are unique and challenging at times to serve, but with hard work, I think that's a real possibility. To Ms. Cuseo, it's been a real privilege seeing you move through. It's also beautiful that it's a family legacy for you and really truly service. It has been incredible. And I remember when we expanded the number of course sections for world languages, et cetera, how much you threw yourself into that. And I could hear it from students, from parents, you name it. So to see you move up the ranks, it's a great thing, and it's indicative of what we need to be doing, which is cultivating leadership here. So congratulations and welcome. Ms. Vineyard, you have been here as kind of a stand, and I am so excited to see what you're going to do with Washington. Without a doubt, Washington is an incredible community serving a lot of different needs. But really, truly, if we're going to have somebody in there who understands that and can hit the ground running, as it seems to be the popular phrase tonight, I have such confidence in you. So wishing you the very, very best and all of you as you take on this next year. Hopefully it will be a calmer year generally as we talk about pandemic and other things that are just very real challenges that now come with education. But I'm excited. And to our new Burbank High School principal, I'm a Bulldog. There's a lot of Bulldogs up here. So these colors don't run. Having said that, they don't. We root for everybody, but I'm proud to be a Bulldog. Burbank High is such an incredible campus community, but it needs a lot of love right now. And you are coming in with some heavy responsibility, but without a doubt, we're here for you. And we support your leadership and really wishing you the very best. And wherever we can be partners, let's talk. So once you get settled, I'd love to circle up and check in. Anyway, take care and congrats, everybody, once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're a polite group, as you can see.
Second, pretty much everything that my colleague said. With so many of you here, I think that it's just great to see the mix of people who have been working within our district and newcomers to our district that will bring valuable experience and information. I loved, Mr. Your energy and opportunity is the key word for the adult school. You all seem very well suited to your positions. You wore the right colors for Burbank High. I'm sure that was intentional, so congratulations. Good first step, but as we've said, it's as Mr. Ferguson said, it's the high schools just in general are a challenge, and there's a lot at Burbank High, but we're excited to see your transition to that position. Ms. Vineyard, been fantastic at Luther, and now seeing you fill in, as you mentioned, for Ms. Young leaving, I think is going to be a fantastic transition. I look forward to seeing all of you on campus. Ms. Anderson, the ILA is near and dear to my heart. My daughter was one of the first group to go through the ILA 8 years ago now. Boy, but it's gotten obviously grown and is much more a lot different than it was in those days, and there's a lot more going on, so I look forward to having a chance to talk to you and excuse me, just see what your plans are, as far as taking that forward. So congratulations to all of you. I couldn't be more excited to have you all on board. Thank you.
Dr. Weisberg, you ready?
Hello. I just wanted to say welcome to everybody. Ms. Cusay was one of the very first people that I met within like the first couple of months of being on board. And it was a great meeting because we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I could see how passionate you were. And so it made me feel really comfortable and confident and excited because COVID kept me from meeting just about anybody this whole first year. But that meeting has really stuck with me and motivated me in a lot of moments where I was like struggling to figure out next steps. So I want to thank you for that. I'm so excited about ILA. We've been hearing from the ILA teachers all year as the program has kind of exploded into this big new entity. And so it's really exciting to see all the things that you're going to bring that I know that all of the staff there are looking for. So not only is it exciting for us, I know it's just a huge blessing for everybody there. I choose to believe that you wore Dodger blue because that is what I care about, but also the schools. But I also want to echo what Mr. Ferguson said and welcome you. For everybody, lots of challenges ahead. I mean, when we talk about hitting the ground running, I think of those memes where they like turn the treadmill all the way up and then you can see how long you can last before you fall down. But I do want to echo what Mr. Ferguson said, which is just that we're here to support you in any way that we can in our capacity. We're here to cheer you on. We're here to back you up and learn with you. One of the things that I have learned, I've been in Burbank for about 8 years, and that makes me a total newbie. So once you hit like a 40 or 50 year mark, I think they say, oh, you've been here for a while. So But welcome to everybody. I'm excited to get to see all the phenomenal things that you accomplish and just find different ways to support that work as we move forward. So welcome, and thank you for choosing BUSD.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to welcome all of you. And I just love how diverse this group is, which is a reflection of what Burbank is. But also I want to remind everyone, we are a family here. So if you ever need to reach out to any of us, please do not hesitate. And in closing, I also love the fact that we have graduates from my alma mater, CSUN, go Northridge, go, and Pepperdine. We had Pepperdine. Oh, there you go. Go Waves. But again, we're here for you, and I want to congratulate all of you. And just know that you have friends here, and if you ever need us, we're one call away. Thank you.
Thank you. That was all of you. Very, very sweet, very kind. I guess that's it. We're going to move on and finish this meeting. Thank you for coming. Looking forward to seeing you at your campuses. Congratulations. You can stay. It's, riveting.
I would leave. Don't feel like you have to.
There's one person in the audience right now, and that is the amazing April Weaver. But, yeah. What did she say? No, I'm just kidding.
That's
Nice.
awesome. I'm glad you stayed, April, really.
She has a presentation. I do.
Yeah. So, Dr. Hill, did you have more to say, or?
Those are all the introductions this evening.
Okay. And no, your comments, that was it. Great. We have no cards. No one wishes to address us. Do we have a virtual?
We do not have a virtual.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Do we have, I sure did. I turned the page before. My apologies. Number 7, items for future agendas. Anyone? Okay.
Just all the items that I've requested that I haven't been agendas.
They're coming.
Great.
Promise. Okay, we're skipping number 8. We guess nothing, no one virtual and no one's here.
No virtual.
So request to address the board. I'm not going to read all that since no one is here. We have no staff responses. Board member responses or comments, if you'd like to, please.
Just a few things. Hold on, let me get to my notes.
She has not logged on.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. If she does come on within the next hour or so, if we can
Yeah,
do that,
for
just
sure.
as we haven't had public comment, and if somebody has opted in, I'd just rather see that than not. That's okay.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Just wanted to say a couple of very quick things. First of which is a thank you to Senator Portantino and Assemblymember Laura Friedman. But Senator Portantino is chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and today 4 gun violence prevention bills passed through the Senate. And I think it's important in light of the conversations we've been having just to briefly share. So AB 1594 is legislation that allows lawsuits against manufacturers and sellers of firearms for the harm caused by their product. AB 1621 is legislation to further regulate ghost guns. It's going to prohibit the sale of unserialized parts that are easily converted into untraceable ghost guns by people who cannot legally purchase guns. Scary that we need that piece of legislation, but we're lucky to have legislators who know how important that is. AB 2571, which is legislation to prohibit advertising firearms in ways that are designed, intended, or likely to appeal to minors. AB 1929, legislation to create a community violence prevention and recovery program covered as a Medi-Cal benefit. And AB 452, which is legislation that requires school districts to send home information about secure storage from school. So we're really, really lucky. I know that Assemblymember Nazarian was on one of these bills as a co-author. Assemblymember Freeman, Senator Portantino. We are unendingly lucky to have administrators who care so deeply about this issue, and I am hopeful that our city electeds will meet this challenge head on and help us address ways to keep our community safer and significantly more gun-free. And the last thing I just wanted to say is that in celebration of Juneteenth on Saturday, Maroon Arts and Culture is putting on a Juneteenth celebration from 11 to 5. It seems like it's going to be really cool. It's here in Burbank. I encourage you to check out more details. That's it.
Anyone else?
Quick.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It is Pride Month, and I just want to say, have a wonderful, happy Pride. Our schools are not in, but if you are a student who happens to be watching this and you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community, you are beautiful, you are amazing, and you are a part of a very critical formula that makes this district special. So happy Pride Month for the remaining weeks that are left. Prides are going on everywhere, and I think that's actually pretty exciting. Boyle Heights is having a Pride parade. Everybody's having a Pride parade. You get a Pride parade. You get a Pride parade. Anyway, everybody gets a rainbow. But again, this is a district made up of a lot of diversity from a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different walks of life. And again, seeing those flags outside, and again, thank you to the superintendent and other staff who have facilitated that. The symbols that flag presents is that these campuses are safe spaces. And we will continue to work as the leadership team of this district to continue to ensure that for years to come. So this is a huge progress moment, I think, for us as a district to continue to celebrate this legacy. But in the meantime, happy Pride.
As a kindergartner explained to his teacher, it means everyone's wanted and welcomed at our school sites. And I thought that was really cool from a kindergartner. Just jumping in. Go ahead.
Just real quick, and first of all, thank you for recognizing that. It is important to keep reminding people of that, because it shouldn't be just a corporate recognition. We pass the recognition, but it's important to remember it throughout the month and throughout the year, really, but especially this month when it's being celebrated. So thank you for reminding everyone about that. And to kind of piggyback on Dr. Weisberg's comments, there was a March for Our Lives rally in Burbank last Saturday morning, against gun violence. Unfortunately, the second one that happened, I guess the original was 3 years ago. Yeah. People were there who still had their shirts from the marching the previous time. Senator Portantino was there, Congressman Schiff, several city council members, Dr. Agakanian, and myself also had the opportunity to attend. I had a chance to speak with many residents, a lot of concern. It's obviously a very hot issue right now, not just nationally, but locally, as it was pointed out several times. Burbank right now is second in the nation in per capita gun stores, and there is a large, it's not really a new store because they had another location, but they are expanding into a larger store, and it's drawing a lot of attention in Burbank right now. So I know our city council has been hearing about this a lot. They at their meetings, and I think they are looking into the situation more. But the citizens really want to see something more happen. We don't want it just to be conversation, and there was quite a turnout. So it was good to see people still very passionate about seeing something happen and seeing something happen in Burbank. So, but thank you.
There was a.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. There was also a vigil for victims of gun at City Hall that was also very well attended, and Senator Portantino, who's been a good partner and advocate for gun responsibility, gun safety, and it's nice to have those electeds aware and talking and speaking about it. Some folks stayed and addressed City Council about the issue. It was one of those moments that just makes you stop for a second and think, what in the world are we doing? And so it was out of tragedy. Hopefully something better will come out of all of this. So, which has nothing to do, well, sort of. We are really fortunate in our community and as a school district to have the partnership of FSA, who does it has nothing to do. I'm just moving on. Oh, you looked confused. Sorry. we're very fortunate to have FSA help us at our school sites with counseling and ability for students to talk to someone should the need arise. And they had an amazing event the other night produced by Suzanne Wirtz, who does a great job at the theater at the mall that I can't think of the name of right now, the Colony. Really, really amazing, interesting speakers who that were funny and not funny and made you cry and made you think. And I'm so appreciative of people like Suzanne in our community who take the effort to help raise funds to keep these amazing entities like FSA together. So it was really, really fun to go to and visit. So, yes, sir.
Thank you. So I thank you for bringing up the March for Our Lives, and it was a huge turnout. But, you know, one thing that was really impactful for me was, you know, this is the second time we've taken our son to this rally. And he said, when we were getting ready to go, he said, again, I mean, this is a 10-year-old who's already been to 2 rallies. And that is not acceptable. Just to wrap this up, I did also have the honor of attending a press conference at East LA College with Assemblymember Miguel Santiago regarding AB 2266. I don't know if the governor has signed it yet, but if he's listening, I'm sure.
What's that bill?
Huh?
Can you say what bill that is?
This is regarding expanding education. So AB 2266. Is Audrey on that? Oh, you're going to share some good news? Oh, I can. Oh, no. Okay. So $25 million to expand free community college, $500 million to expand Cal grants, and expansion of middle-class scholarship, and this will make higher education more accessible. And Mr. Ferguson, do you know where it stands? Where is it?
In the education,
Yeah.
the Senate Education Committee is
Yeah.
going to be heard at the end of the month on the 3rd.
So, Mr. Governor, I'm sure you're watching our newscast tonight. I mean, our live cast tonight. So please vote yes on AB 2266, and thank you, Assemblymember Santiago, and all the others who co-signed on the bill. Thank you.
One last thing, and thank you. We are talking a lot about legislation, which is really exciting because there's a lot of very meaningful legislation moving through. Having said that, and I'm looking at our financial folks, a lot of this money is one time. And the harder times are anticipated. And so, again, as good as this influx is, I think we all know what this is. It is the deep breath before we have to hold it. So, you know, let's lead with that in mind. And we're grateful, again, to responsive legislators who get it. But this is one-time money, and the state reserves are not as such that they're going to continue to pay out at this rate. So, again, thank you to our state leadership and to Dr. Agakanian for pointing out certainly where we've expanded in higher education as a state. But a flag for the public as we owe you explanation. There's not money forever right now. It's money for 1 year at least. So thank you.
Okay, moving on, reports to the board. We have a report on facilities and technology projects. Mrs. Cutcut?
Good evening, President Tabbitt, board members, staff, and community. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight that are facilities and technology rated that are funded by bonds. They're in the consent agenda. So if we can get the PowerPoint up. The first item is the approval of additive change order number 2 for the demolition, earthwork, and paving for the 2-story modular building. These are all have to do with Disney tonight. The contractor is Chalmers Construction. The increased amount of $4,725 brings the amount not to exceed $527,450, and this was for the demo and removal of paving under the existing lunch area. This is kind of a value-added item. Wasn't in the original scope, but as Mr. Cross, our facilities director, was at the site looking, he thought we should go ahead and address that, and he's got great ideas to bring in tables and umbrellas and extend the lunch shelter, so it's going to look really nice.
Can I jump in there? Because his reasoning for what he's doing, he's putting concrete there. Because when you power wash asphalt, it deteriorates quicker. And so the concrete is a better use for that area, which I was like, awesome.
value
Thank
added.
you. Yeah.
So,
But I know there's been a question about shade on the campus site. So umbrellas, ways to keep the kids cool who are going to be eating on that, I assume.
yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
That's true. Then
And he,
asphalt,
and
for
he
sure.
has some tree ideas that
There's
are going
some
in
trees,
planters
yeah.
as
He's
opposed to into the ground. He's
Trying
doing
to
a good
avoid the
job.
problems that the trees have in the middle of the asphalt where they lift it and cause a tripping hazard. So there are 3 trees that he's got planned that are going to be encased in cement containers to keep the root systems from getting out and destroying the asphalt. So people are learning. We're trying to avoid those problems, those challenges. Anyway, that is item 13AR on the consent agenda. The next item is additive change order number 1 for Marina Landscape. Again, the Disney building with landscaping and irrigation. This amount was increased amount of $6,214.86, brings the not to exceed amount to $117,115, and that's to remove and relocate sleeving that was previously installed. Just as we find things, he's trying to correct it, and rather than leave it there, just remove it at the time while we're in there. And the last item is item 13AT, again for Disney, for electrical and low voltage for H&S Electric. This increased amount of $3,242.36 brings the not to exceed amount to $311,204, and that is for the decommissioning of FA devices, fire alarm, I had to ask that, installed in the 2 portable buildings that will be removed from the school site. So, and I know we owe you a tour of the site, except that it is, I mean, they just finished demolishing the area and everything is torn up. So as soon as we can do that, we'll bring you in as well as the School Facilities Oversight Committee.
Thank you for your work on that project specifically, since we had so many items just about that.
Just a quick comment. This has been a project that has been marching along and taking some time. Having said that, I really want to thank Mr. Cross as well as Ms. Kukta for continuously kind of checking in with the community and doing your best to kind of keep everybody informed in a pretty chaotic situation. It's a small footprint of a campus to begin with, so any construction is going to have really significant impacts. We've heard that from members of the public, but every time after meetings, we have brought up concerns about, hey, can we make sure we're incorporating parents? Ms. Kukta and others are, hey, absolutely, I'm on it. Let me get in touch. So I really, that's leadership, and I just appreciate it. So thank you again.
Okay. We're going to our public hearing. I was warning, Doctor. So the public hearing for item 11A is now open, but it's not just 11A. The public hearing contains 11A, 11B, 11C, 11D, 11E.
Are we doing separate or one public hearing for all?
One public hearing for all.
Got it. As long as that's good.
Okay. We all good with that?
Understood.
Right. Okay. Anyone wish to address the board on the public hearing portion? I know. Slow down. Yeah. It's all good.
Simmer down now. Thank you.
We might need numbers.
Dial it back. It's summer. Okay.
Okay.
We're all doing our best here. Thank you.
11A, public hearing on the 2022-2023 Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP, and budget. Do I keep going? 11A? No. The Board of Education will conduct a public hearing to receive input from any interested parties on the district's 2022-2023 Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP, and budget, which has been made available for public review prior to the board meeting per education. Okay, no one wants to address us, so we can move on to 11B. First reading of the 2022-2023 Burbank Unified School District Local Control Funding Formula, LCFF, and Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP. Now, Dr. Knappich. No? Yes? Or Mr. Anders?
Good evening again, Board of Education, Superintendent Hill, Cabinet, and the Burbank School Community. This evening we have our first reading of the Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP. I also want to introduce Dr. Anders, who's done all the heavy lifting with the LCAP because he's taken the second year plan and revised it. He's prepared all the PowerPoints. He's been at all the LCAP meetings, and he has been a heavy hitter in all the participating in the meetings and coordinating everything. So I just want to recognize Robin and all his hard work and everything and pulling it all together. If I can go to the slides, please. I can just go through a few of them really, really quickly. We had a meeting on March 3rd at the town hall, and at that meeting we went ahead and shared all of our budgeted action items for the Local Control Accountability Plan. And let's try the other one. That's a little bit hard to read there, but within the accountability plan, we have items that refer to expenditures for the transitional kindergarten program over at Washington Elementary School, 2 classrooms that we're going to be paying for. And by the way, we are opening up 2 transitional kindergarten classrooms at Washington. After all, we'll have 10 transitional kindergarten classrooms plus the 2 at Washington, and we have 2 new ones, one at Jefferson and one at Hart. So 10 total. I'm kind of, yeah, a little bit confusing with the way I presented it, but 10 total, yeah. We are paying for our ELD specialists, for our ELD instructional assistants with these funds. We pay for our dual immersion program, instructional assistants, and our partial cost of teacher salaries within the program. We also pay for extended summer school for English learners. We pay for our teacher on special assignment for the PAR program. We pay for our middle school psychologists, and I'm just kind of jumping through a couple of slides here. We pay for our English learner program, maintenance of effort, which is mainly our instructional assistants in the English learner program. We pay for our curriculum specialists, our library coordinators, our professional development teacher and special assignment. Right now, we're not funding for right now, but that may change down the road. Next slide, we have our high school counselors, Monterey High School, teachers and assistant principal, community day school, the teachers, the instructional assistants, intervention sections. We have a contract with Family Services of Burbank, summer school credit. We pay for some of those costs. We pay for the secondary at-risk intervention specialists, elementary at-risk intervention specialists, some costs related to PBIS. We have foster homeless that we have paid for through LCAP. And we also have some base funding that we include into the LCAP too, such as the GATE program, musical instrument repair, secondary art supplies, world languages courses at the middle schools, elementary music teachers. Okay, and then we have 2 large expenditures there, which are base expenditures, and those are personnel and administrative costs from across the district, like all teachers, all administrative costs across the district for that $100 million. And then our program related to special education and all students that are on IEPs for about $39 million, which once again is all staffing for that $39 million too. Okay, so that's just a really quick update on what we presented, and then we talked about some new items. And Robin, did you want to share about the new items?
Sure. So these are items that were one-time items last year, and so some of them have been revised for this year, coming year. And then additionally, some items that were talked about or discussed at the town hall meeting as far as items that we wanted to fund for the coming year with carryover monies from previous years. So this would include our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. That would be being a coordinator, as well as our professional development facing history. Additionally, as discussed, we are looking at site lead stipends at all of our sites for teachers in roles to facilitate those conversations and the PD work at their sites. Along with that would be time for them to collaborate with our consultant in the effort of continuing that conversation in PD. A new item as well is the mental health consultant, specifically designated for issues around the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Secondary summer school stipends was partially funded through LCAP. There were other funds that were used to fully fund that, but that is money being spent this summer on credit recovery, grade improvement, as well as, well, those are the two that those were made, used for.
How far short is that of full funding, the stipends? Yep, it says partially funded.
So it's fully funded. It's just that we only used a
Use,
portion
the
of
new
supplemental
money.
funds to fill
Okay.
that out. And I don't remember if, John, do you have that total? I can look at that for what other funding was used to fully fund that. And then the last item there was to increase ELD sections for new immigrants. So we did see an increase this year already to that action item, but we increased it additionally. And that is 118,000 towards that. You can see the dollar amounts for each of these action items as far as the new items. And these are also, as of now, one-time action items for this coming year, and they'll be revisited for the following year. And then our next slide is the, yeah.
So, when is the appropriate time to talk about the DEI expenditures?
Yeah. I would say right now, since we're on this slide.
Hey, okay. So, some clarifying questions. I mean, I think just very briefly, I think the board knows that my hope had always been moving forward after what we had hoped would be sort of an audit of the district, that moving forward would be teacher stipends, that our teachers would be the ones who are driving this work, because we know that the teachers know their sites better than anybody. Every school needs different things. So I'm really excited to see this, the site lead stipends, time to collaborate. I think it's unbelievably important. We've been asking so much of our teachers to do this work with next to nothing, and we know that people have really stepped up. Where I'm a little confused, and Dr. Hill, I know we've spoken about this at length, but I want to be clear in regards to the consultant not being a coordinator, number one. They're being paid as a consultant, and I know we haven't really spoken about this at length. And we've talked about clear parameters and boundaries and what that means, but I do want to be really clear, because we know that when we invested a lot of money in something, especially like DEI, people really scrutinize us. So we have this money for PD with Facing History. And then my understanding was that the DEI consultant would be purely in a role of professional development as needed, would create a schedule that we could see so that they would be visiting each site, and that would be the entire breadth and scope of their role. So I just want to make sure that that I'm clear and I understand like where the overlap is, because as you know, like I'm uncomfortable with a coordinator position. I think people have expressed that the professional development element that Ms. McCoy has provided has been helpful. But I just want to make sure that we're really clear on like what the budget line for Facing History is in relationship to the consultant. For me, the site lead stipends and the collaboration, that makes sense. The rest of these line items make sense to me. I think I'm just a little unclear about those first two.
So we would come back with a specific contract for this, but the 4 parts that we have envisioned for that, one is in-person professional development at each school staff with all the staff at the site. So the consultant would come in and deliver that professional development. We did that at a couple school sites this year, and we received positive feedback about that. So this would make sure that all the school sites have that. So that's number 1. 2 is meeting with those new leads and Facing History and our staff, and being able to plan and make sure that we're coordinated on our professional development. We plan that would be 10 meetings, 2 hours per meeting over the course of the year. The next one is continuing to do work with Dr. Paramo as we're doing DEI response. So when you have an incident, so Dr. Paramo and the consultant would work with those school site teams and make sure that we have consistent policies and practices and implement that. From the survey that we saw in the DEI is that our students and our parents and our staff want to make sure there's consistent policies and procedures when we're dealing with issues of racism. So that would be the additional support there. And then also continue to build that capacity of the principals, the APs, and the school site DEI teams.
Yeah. I mean, so some of that makes sense to me. Some of that sounds like a coordinator position,
Yep.
and I do have trepidation about that. And again, none of this is new. We've talked about this before, but I think I'm struggling a little bit because I feel like for me, the PD, awesome, right? Like we're going to get a schedule of which school and when the PD happens and hopefully get some data about how that went, which I think is unbelievably important. I get concerned when we're asking one person to be the point person with Dr. Paramo, because that to me feels like we're now moving back into the land of a coordinator
That's right.
position.
That's right.
And I think, again, there are a lot of benefits. There are some benefits to have had the coordinator this year, but I think realistically, if we're looking at a sustainable model that's going to make real impact in our schools, partially because of our financial limitations, we know it's not realistic to afford. I mean, in a perfect world, of course, we'd have like a whole full-time DEI team and it would be magical and there'd be unicorns. But I think I'm getting, and again, I think this will probably come up later, but I am a little concerned with a couple of those items sounding like much more of a coordinator position. And my feeling is like, it is unbelievably important that at this point we are empowering our teacher leaders to address the specific needs of their campuses. And also something that you said, I think jumped out at me a little bit because racism isn't the only thing.
That's right.
Right? So, and we know that this year we had student population, we had stakeholder groups that did not feel like their concerns were addressed. And so obviously, without question, racism is an enormous issue. We know systemically and historically in BUSD, but we also know that the last 2 years have been unbelievably traumatic for our LGBTQ plus students. Our Latinx students didn't get an enormous amount of time and focus this year. And so, I think, I know that you know all that, right? And also our neurodiverse student population. So I think that's where having our teacher leaders who can really identify what's needed on each school site, to me, it is going to be far more important than a person. I mean, one person can't do all 21 sites, right? One person can't address all those things. And so my hope had been with this first person to get this audit and get a deeper understanding. I do feel like we're in the same place essentially that we were at the beginning
That's right.
of the process. What I think is complimentary about that is that a lot of the findings were things that we had identified in the DEI group early on. Which is good. We have an enormous amount of work left to go. I think all of this just to say when we're thinking about budgetary concerns, just really wanting to make sure that the money is going towards a sustainable model that focuses on our teacher leaders and strengthening those individual needs at each school site. So maybe it's just ironing out more details, but
Since this is since this is a first reading, is this something, so take Dr. Weisberg's comments and have a
Party?
The guidance we would need tonight is on the overall allocation for DEI work. How we provide the specifics would be a future agenda item. So I just want to make sure are you saying that, so the slide that we have up there about using the carryover, if the board wants to reduce the amount that we're
Could you
spending
put
on it,
that
that's
slide back up for us,
I also have it
please?
here.
Slide 10.
Oh, that's what I was.
And I would say that I don't want to reduce my feelings about I mean, one thing I would ask too, if it's appropriate, is I'd love to hear from Ms. Cuseo and Dr. Paramo, and because obviously they're the ones on the ground who've been doing this work, day for the past year. Yes, please.
I hear you.
I understand what you're saying and your concerns, but I really do think that it's important to set up our team of teachers for success.
Yeah.
They're going to need some support, and it's going to be a capacity issue for us at the district office, to manage all of that, get them all trained and ready to be able to take on those responsibilities. It may not be a long-term role, but I think they do need some initial support and guidance in how to make that work.
I don't disagree with that. I think I am slightly concerned about who that person will be.
Yes.
But I agree 100% with everything you said.
Okay, but I do want to say, in terms of this report, that has nothing to do with who it will be.
Correct. Yes.
All right.
I don't know if Dr.
Go ahead.
Paramo. wants to.
Do you want to give Dr.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over
Go
you.
ahead.
I just
no.
want to hear from
We
the
can hear from
experts.
Dr. Prama first.
So it became very clear this year in the spring that we had reached a point where there were so many instances of hate speech related to racism and homophobia. And our school sites were at capacity in terms of how you deal with that. So we had instances where we would have children who had multiple incidents with seemingly nothing more to try to do to address that. So it became obvious we needed to do something. So we began, Stephanie and I, to do these restorative meetings. I did, from February until the end of the year, I did many of these meetings. And sometimes those were alone because Stephanie wasn't available, but we did these meetings. What's clear to me is that we had some pretty powerful results with that. What's also clear to me is that I can't sustain that for the number of schools we have and the number of incidents that occur. So for me, just boots on the ground is we need to educate our staff and our school sites to be able to do this process, because we can't service the volume right now. And so whatever it takes to get them serviced, in service, to be able to provide this is where I think we need to go. So in my mind, there's a base level of professional development that needs to happen in order for our school sites to address this appropriately and so that this is actually sustainable. We had one experience, I'm not sure, I just know of the experience at John Burroughs High School where the PD was given to the staff, and very detailed survey responses were done. And I'm just sharing my personal thoughts, is that I was pretty amazed, shocked, I would say shocked, because it was like in the 85 percentile where staff said this was important, this was beneficial, and it was worth our time. So I would just offer that.
Go before.
Do you want to go?
I just had one quick thing to say, which is I'm all, there's no part, all the PD.
No, I get that.
Right, and I think it's great to hear that that was as successful as it was. I know Dr. Hill was saying too that like all the PDs that were done on the sites were really successful, which is phenomenal. I'll leave it at that right now.
Thank you, President Tabbitt, and thank you, Dr. Weisberg, for your comments on this. I have to say, I think both consultant roles give me very much pause, and I probably won't support them. One, I will say, our DEI work is more critical than ever, and we know that. And as a result, it's more critical to make sure the money is going to the right place and actually fulfilling the mission that we're doing. This year I have definitely seen a lot of community-based work. Absolutely. I definitely see our coordinator has done a lot of work. But when I see surveys come back with only 400 responses, I begin to question if our approach is correct. I also begin to question if that's the way we should be approaching a lot of situations. I've seen, personally, as an LGBTQ person, I have really big pause about some of the steps we've taken as a district in the name of keeping kids safe. And at times, I think it's been about too little, too late. And I think when we are reactive with a model, that happens. So I don't want to see coordinators use like fire extinguishers to put out fires as they occur. That to me is a reactive strategy. What I want to do is invest in the PD and not house it under individuals. And I'm talking about the DEI consultant money that's here and also the mental health consultant who's here, which again seems like additional layering. And while the board has oversight over the budget, what will happen is, and again, this has been a highly kind of politicized contract, you know, what will happen is that the district staff will do what the district staff will do with that coordinator, but it's not necessarily aligned with a vision for where we're going, a plan for what we're doing, and that's not negating the work that's been done. But I just have serious questions about our approach to that, because in every other coordinator position that I've seen so far as a district board member, it hasn't been successful. So I think it's a bit of repeating the same history, and I'd like to see those two consultants, at least if they're not further justified, as not, you know, and really spelled out as to what the scope is. Because again, it just sounds like more layering, less localized control at the school sites to tailor to meet the needs of individual school sites. Instead, we have one person we're relying on to understand 21 different school communities. And I think that that's short-sighted and bad planning. So I would like to see us contract with agencies who can deploy multiple teams who understand, frankly, when you have an LGBTQ situation, and then who also have the resourcing to send folks if you have a situation with the Armenian American community in our, and one person does not possess all the skill sets to relate to all those communities, in my experience. Does that mean we need a team of consultants? I don't know. But we've tried one consultant before. We tried one coordinator before, and we got rid of those positions quickly after. And we're headed into a budget situation where, again, we're acknowledging this is a lot of one-time money. So, and when people get addicted to the consultants, they want to keep them on year after year. Rightfully so. I hear Dr. Paramo when he says boots on the ground. We've always had a staffing issue. We've always had capacity issue. But now we're taking this on, and instead we're trying to centralize this work. When realistically, this is a journey for each school site, along with policy at a meta level. So I just need more explanation as to that, because I feel like, I think we heard what we heard tonight was the beginning of a coordinator position in name only. And that's concerning to me, because I think we need to be all in the right way, and I think that that means plans for each school site and plans for our kind of policies broadly that impact our ability as a district to deliver, you know, an education that is equitable.
Can I clarify?
Please.
If that came across, I do want to clarify that is not the intent of the position. As Ms. Caseo and I shared, that we are building the capacity at each school site. We need help from the district office level to be able to build that capacity. So to be able to work with Ms. Caseo on the professional development instructional, as we have these leads identified, facing history has helped them. We need to go deeper and build that skill set. As each school site's doing that journey, they're having challenges. And what we hear back from the principals, we need support, we need help as we build our DEI teams. That's the professional development what we're talking about, is building the capacity of the school site. So it didn't come across as clear. I just want to clarify.
I think that, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. And when we spoke about it earlier, I think something that Ms. Cuseo also said too, like the goal is eventually to create self-sustaining entities, right? And I agree 100% we're not there yet. And we need to be able to provide support to get further along. So I think for me, some of it is semantics, I think, and some of it is just having a clear picture. But the way, I mean, so that to me is important and does make sense. I don't want to just sort of throw our teacher leaders to the wolves. But I do want us continuing moving forward so that it is moved by our teachers. But you're right, we all need more help to be able to get there.
Thank you. So I think being on this journey with the DEI committee and how it really started almost organic from members of the community coming forward. I think what I don't want to see is what some other institutions, educational institutions have done, which is quickly coming to the conclusion that by doing so, we're fixing this issue. I told everyone from the beginning, this is a lengthy process. And if you have not experienced what some of these individuals have gone through, if you've not been there, it is going to be very difficult for you to understand it, and that needs the experts to come forward and talk about these issues. Or we will become, just like many other districts who have done this, kind of let it go, went sideways, was flavor of the month. You bring some speakers, you spend a lot of money on them, they come and speak to your faculty for an hour, and then you just check that off the box. That was not the intention of creating this committee. And yes, we have a lot of issues. But at the same time, I believe that This is a lengthy process. It does require money, but I think if we're starting at our schools, we do need to have individuals who can really provide the support or individuals to our teachers. This is a very difficult topic, and it's not as simple as just, oh, we're gonna do this or read that book and it's done. Changing the environment, creating a culture that understands what racism is about, or what discrimination is about, identifying those and having the ability to come forward and be brave enough to do, that's even more difficult. I hear on a daily basis how at least members of not only my community, but other communities are discriminated against, not only in Burbank, but at work. Yet, the mechanism to bring this forward, to help people to speak up about this, but also to empower our teachers, our faculty and staff to talk about this, it's a lengthy process. So I'm asking everyone to not only be patient, but not to come up with one-time solutions because they think that's the right thing. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Just, if I'm hearing my colleagues correctly, the question really isn't the dollar amounts we're showing devoted to DEI. It's more of how these are being distributed, and even from the description, maybe if it was rephrased as site-based professional development, because that seemed to be what Dr. Pramo was saying was, incredibly effective, and that's what we want to see is more site-based. So I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Ferguson, about what we've seen in the director position, which when we funded it this year, we knew it was a 1 year, we were doing one-time funds anyways. But we still want to see we would still want to see progress on DEI, which means we do have to spend dollars. But I guess maybe if we could have this kind of rephrased and redirected so that it's clear what it's going to, as opposed to having the title just consultant in there. If it was phrased exactly what we expect that money to be spent on.
Great. That would be great.
Just to piggyback quickly, I think that's it. I'm not entirely sure I know what you were saying before, but I don't think anybody up here is saying that we want an easy fix or that it's going to be quick. We're all this has been my life's work, right? So I think we're trying to figure out a way to make it effective, sustainable, and a model that we can have in perpetuity. So I think a lot of my struggle is semantic right now. So, Mr. Furtner, I'm thankful to you for reframing it. So it seems like it's really just a couple lines of clarification, but I'm not arguing against the money that's here. No. I mean, not at all. So, and I think we know, because there is also so much pushback about this unbelievably important work, that the more clear and concise and detailed we can be about how we're using it,
that's right,
better it is. So
absolutely.
Thank you for that was helpful.
Okay, good, thank you. Moving on.
Sure.
Mr. Anders?
So we have just, I believe, one more slide, and this is just the overview of the budget for next year's LCAP. So we do have carryover money. Most of this is primarily from the year one, and because of one-time money. So some of the action items were we were able to use other funds or COVID monies to fund, so that's why there's this carryover. And so we're using that as part of our some of those one-time items, but also to balance the budget. So our estimated revenue for next year with supplemental funds, and this is again based off of our unduplicated pupil count, is 9,907,107. We're going to use a portion of our carryover funds, and that would be $1,761,320 in next year's budget. And then we would have another balance that will carry over into the following year at the end of next year of $810,746. So that just kind of gives the landscape of this year and the carryover that we anticipate into year 3 to help sustain some of these programs. And then there was an appendix that identifies some of the topics that were discussed in the town hall meeting, and if they were funded or if there were we were able to find other funding that was better suited to fund those items. So we were able to identify funding for all of the items discussed from the town hall.
Okay.
Thank you to everybody for all your hard work on this.
Well, and we're not done.
I know.
We have 11C. I'm good to move forward? Okay. 11C, first reading of the district's 2022-2023 proposed budget. Mrs. Kutka. And Ally? Yes? I don't get to see enough of Ally.
I'm sure she's more than happy not to see us all the time. We were excited you were here, and I was like, I'm not sure it's always the same. But anyway, good to see you, Ally.
If I don't make it, I watch.
I'm sorry.
Good evening again. I'm sorry for all the numbers tonight. It's just one of those nights, right?
Yep.
So anyway, and I would like to introduce Ms. Alyssa Lowe, who is here, our Fiscal Services Director.
Amen.
So she and her team, Karen Watlin, our Assistant Budget Supervisor, and the whole team have really worked hard on this to get it to close. So we appreciate you. Anyway, if we can get the PowerPoint, we are here to talk about the 22-23 budget. Quite the agenda tonight, so just looking at the budget cycle, our budget assumptions, the contributions and transfers out, reserve for economic uncertainties. We have a new one we're going to talk about tonight, the reserve cap. We'll be looking at our multi-year projections, some of the challenges which Mr. Ferguson alluded to in his comments earlier, and then our education protection account, or EPA, budget. So our budget cycle, we're here in the yellow square where we're adopting the budget. We'll have the hearing next Tuesday. And you can see we still have to finish up last year where we'll get to the unaudited actuals for this last year on September 15th, but we're not quite there yet. Our certification definitions, we are positive certified, so that's self-certified, so that's based on our current projections. We'll be able to meet our financial obligations for the current and subsequent 2 fiscal years. This is an interesting look and kind of refers back to the funding that we're looking at. So I bolded, this is a slide from School Services, May Revise budget presentation, but I took the opportunity to bold. So we're looking at an anticipated slowdown of state general fund revenues. And we should read that as a warning sign for more modest state budgets to come. And obviously that's their allocation to our education budgets K-12. But for now, the May Revise demonstrates that the governor definitely heard the call of the education community that we needed more funding and to help us with this decline with enrollment, which everybody is looking at, our ADA decline. One of the big things is we didn't have no new categorical programs because that just ties our hands. We like that discretionary money. So we were hopeful that that happened, but we are looking, this is short-lived. So that's what we're looking at. I will say that the Senate Bill 154 passed yesterday. So, and that's because they had to pass it by the 15th of the month or they don't get their paychecks. There's still a lot of reconciliation that has to go on, and we're anticipating that another bill that is going to come back, we'll see. And there's pretty big discrepancies between the governor's budget and what the legislators want. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Looking at our state budget proposal for 22-23, COLA, our cost of living adjustment, and our CalSTRS and CalPERS, our pension contributions. I put in the red box, and I'm referring to this as the circus that we dealt with over the last 2 years, where we were talking about deficit factors and zero COLA, and then we got a little bit, and then we got a mega COLA of that 5.07%. So, but looking forward, we finally kind of settled down. The 22-23, we're looking at 6.56% cost of living adjustment on our local control funding and a lot of the other programs that are in there. That is projected to decline, which is interesting because when we're looking at inflation and talking about inflation continuing, I don't know how those track, but that's what we're planning, and that's what the assumptions that the budget was built on. And unfortunately, this budget didn't have any relief for our pensions. So when you look down at the bottom with CalSTRS and PERS, you can see the rates are going. We will see later that we set aside some money and committed some fund balance in case the rates go up. What we're looking at too, they promised, especially on CalSTRS, where it's going to be 19.1% for the very far future when you look into that. But most districts are a little bit leery that they're going to hold the rates there. And so we have committed some of the fund balance in case those go up.
Next, could I ask that?
Of course.
Those percentages come back to us at some point with a real dollar amount, what that looks like?
Yes.
Please.
Yes. We'll have to track that through across all funds, and we
I
can
know
do that.
it's no hurry, but
no biggie.
It's part of my, every time I get the opportunity to yell about school budgets, I mean, I take it. And I mean, there's an opportunity, right, Dr. Hill? Poor 5-star is probably very tired of me, but everybody needs to be saying it because it's money that's already in our budget.
Yeah. Well,
It's
CASBO, the California Association of School Business Officials, also very heavily lobbied to get some pension relief in there for school districts, and we're very disappointed that that was not in there. So there are lots of groups that are trying to get that broken record to the legislators, but obviously they were not listening.
Yes,
The governor wasn't
I was
listening.
told, well, lots of one-time money's coming your way, so just plan for that.
Well,
okay.
yeah. So continuing on with our proposed budget assumptions on the revenues, so you can see our projected ADA, and this is based on 93% attendance. So you're looking at, in the past historically, we've been at 96%. We have seen a decline this year, and that's been across the board. So on average, I think across the state, it was like in a 91 to 92% is what they're seeing, and I've heard LA Unified is far worse than that. So, but this is the conservative one, and obviously we're hoping for more, and we'll make adjustments as the year goes on. But again, it's the one-time federal funding that we're seeing. The funded LCFF increase was computed during the 3-year average. If you remember at second interim, we set aside some fund balance because LA County Office of Education allowed us to calculate that. It's more favorable for us, more revenue, but they had us reserve fund balance when we used the 3-year calculation, but they've approved that. So that's what's built into the budget. Discretionary block grant one-time monies we're seeing an influx in, and again, that's not ongoing. So when we look at multi-year projections, we've had to pull that funding out. We are seeing, though, ongoing funding for our ELOP, the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. So we are seeing funding ongoing for, I think, 4 years? 4 years. So these are some factors. This is, again, a slide pulled out of the school services. It just kind of breaks down where our local control funding formula is coming from. We would love to see more base grant dollars. That's another thing that most of the professional organizations have been lobbying for, is just give us the base. That's where the money is. It's discretionary. It helps districts address the needs that they specifically have. We're looking at that 6.56 cost of living adjustment. Additional LCFF investment, which if you look at the footnote is the impact of the additional $2.1 billion investment. That's again one time though. So, but it's a big boost that kind of will get us over a hump. And then you can look, there's a grade span adjustment, and you can see the adjusted base grant per ADA is there. So that's what we get by grade level. And we'll talk about the supplemental. This next slide, we received the supplemental funding, which was mentioned in the previous presentation, and this funding is to address students who are English learners, receive free or reduced price meals, and foster youth. And you can see the dollars at the bottom, where our percentages for 21-22, you can see that percentage was 36.54%, which drops down to in 24-25 all the way to 30.74%. So, and obviously it's driving the funding. You can see the funding is dropping as we look forward in this year and to the next years. And those percentages, though, also drive other funding. So E-rate, the discount that we get, is based on the percentage that we have on that. So we really need to sustain that. And it's suffered, obviously, because we have free lunches for all. So people are not incentivized to file the applications for those free and reduced meals, even though it serves other purposes. So I know Carrie Bogdanovich, our food services director, is really working to try to get those applications turned in. Looking at enrollment, this bar graph we updated for our 22-23 projected. This is from the second interim PowerPoint. The numbers, though, student services want me to point out that those numbers continue to change. So this is a snapshot at this point in time, and we're hoping that enrollment continues to grow. But you can see we actually are up in the projection to 1,464 permits. So that's been successful, although just the base enrollment for our Burbank students has continued to decline. This next slide talks about our ADA, our average daily attendance cliff. And you can see in the first chart where this is across the state, where the state is down more than 270,000 students over this 2-year period, which is just, there was Education Week had a really great article talking about just the decline that we hit in COVID, and it's just not quite recovered. It's the biggest hit to enrollment in history. So really interesting article, but it's a tough reality that we have to deal with. And then on the right, you can see that we mentioned about the 93% attendance that we're basing the budget on. And we're seeing that it's declining. And it's declining because of quarantine and illness, independent study. We're looking at, there's several issues, unsigned master agreements, homework isn't returned in a timely manner, and then audit findings on the rise because you have to be very careful about documenting your attendance. So that's something that the auditors will look for. We hope that doesn't hit Burbank, so we're very well prepared for that. This again is a repeat slide on our one-time COVID monies that you can see that we've gotten over $52 million in one-time COVID monies that we've used where we can. I think the admin team has done a really good job using that to save general fund dollars and to continue to provide support too for our students, keeping class sizes small for health and facilities needs. So we've done a good job, I think, leveraging that money. Here's our first look at our proposed adopted budget with our general fund revenues. You can see the 4 major sources there, the LCFF source revenues, federal revenues, other state revenues, and other local revenues. And you can see they're increasing, especially the LCFF, offsetting even though the enrollment is declining because of that cost of living adjustment, and those things can change though, but this is our best projection at the time. And just the graphical presentation here where you can see that LCFF sources are 84% of our budget. That's why it's so critical that we get our message to the state that is the funding that we need. And this again is where, when we think back to where it's a super COLA or a deficit factor, we are totally reliant on what the state tells us we are getting. And that's why it's critical to have some fund balance to cushion those, to smooth out so that we have enough money to cover our expenditures. So our proposed budget assumptions for our expenditures, we have every year as we do the step and column increases. The Consumer Price Index, or CPI, you can see and we think this is what School Services has told us that we should build into the budget, which LACO concurs with, LA County Office of Education. Inflation, though, we'll see in a later slide, is hovering up about 8%. So there's a little bit of a disparity there that we need to reconcile. I know when we were looking at expenditures, we went kind of in the bigger buckets to look to see if this was adequate, because even this is recommended, and I think it would behoove us to be more conservative. And obviously what drives this is our operational site budget, so the one-time COVID funding plan, STRS and PERS changes, minimum wage, which will continue to go up in weird increments, like 50 cents for a couple periods and then 60 cents, but that's built into the budget. And then obviously our MOUs with the collective bargaining units, with the job study, and the 5% with the retro. So looking at our general fund expenditures, you can see the breakdown by our major classes, the certificated and classified salaries and benefits, books and supplies, services, capital outlay, other outgo, and then the indirects, which are just other funds that are reimbursing us for the indirect expenditures for administrative type costs.
Jumping in real quick, books and supplies is for the 21-22 year. That's was it the social science adoption that was the money there, or because we're at 25 and then we dropped to 5? You
know what? This is just this quirky. And as a board member, I used to question it and I still don't really get it. We estimate those smaller amounts that you see in the out years, But what happens when we present the unaudited actuals, or we go to the first interim, is we bulk that up for what gifts we think we're going to get in and offset that by the expenditures. So that they really kind of correlate on a one-to-one basis.
Got it.
But we don't do that until later in the year. So it's already been done here.
Got
I've
it.
honestly never really understood it, but that's just the quirky education
Thank
accounting.
you. Thanks for flagging.
In addition to that, there's a lot of COVID expenses there. So
Yeah.
the PP&E, I believe Chromebooks would be in this one as well.
Okay, got
So
it.
it's the one-time COVID funding that we had. So you think testing kids,
Okay.
Chromebooks, PP&E.
That's helpful. That's helpful. Thank you.
So here's the, again, the pie graph that'll show you, and you can see where salaries and benefits is, again, a significant portion, the most significant portion of our budget. It's people. Looking at contributions and transfers in and out, you can see special ed and our routine restricted maintenance, or RRM, are the monies that were covered. The routine restricted maintenance is 3% of our expenditures, and the special ed, you can see, continues to grow as the needs grow for that population. And the bottom chart shows the contributions. So we're looking really at Fund 12. You've got this year's numbers with the $336,000 that we've contributed, and then for the next 2 years, we're not projecting any, and we're projecting just a very small amount, $28,000, for our Child Development Fund in the state preschool. So our ending fund balance and excess reserve for economic uncertainties, that's that 3% that we always set aside. So that was part of the public hearing, and we are meeting that requirement as well as the board designated 3%. We have to, this is a new topic for us, is this reserve cap, where we are required, if we need to keep our assigned and unassigned balances under that 10% limit, or the state claws it back. So you'll see later in the agenda, and we talked about it a little bit, where we've committed funds in 4 areas: facility needs, routes and HVAC, STIRS and PERS, textbooks, and technology refresh. So I'll go over those amounts in the future. And those are resolutions that we have to adopt and put into place so that it's formally adopted. And it is at the board's discretion later if you want to change the amounts or remove them, we'll need a resolution to do that, or they're just spent down. If we were to say buy an issue of textbooks, that would reduce that part of the committed fund balance. And you can see some of the tools to address the reserve cap at the bottom, just some of the ideas that they have. Those are additional tools that we could have. Here's this, our multi-year projection, which is, again, a lot of numbers. So some of the things that I want to point out, and when you see the deficit numbers that are there, and as Dr. Hill mentioned about that, if you look at the deficit for this year, 11.9 million, almost 12 million, that is a lot of the expenditures where we booked the revenues last year. And so this was planned. I mean, it's not, we still, if you look at the future 2 years, have that structural deficit, but this year's the deficit is reflective of those COVID monies being spent down. If you look at our components of fund balance, this is probably the most complicated that we've ever been. The non-spendable is pretty standard. That's our stores and revolving cash, I think. So, but you can look at the committed. This is what's on the agenda tonight, is to commit portions of the fund balance to cover these, and that is at your discretion. It would be item 12C, where we're talking about that total $7.9 million and allocated to those sources. You can see the restricted and assigned portions, and I won't go through and read them all. We left the fiscal stability assigned because we need that as you're looking forward to future years. We don't want to spend that down. And the reserve for economic uncertainties and the board-approved reserve. So the total, if we're targeting that 10% of the assigned and unassigned, we actually don't have any unassigned. The assigned fund balance is about 11.7 million when you add up the items there. Typically, the fund balances across the state on average are 17%. That's because it's recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association. That's what the city carries. It approximates 8 weeks of appropriations. So that's where the 17% comes from. So just to keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking at percentages. But you can see that we've, even through 24-25, we've still maintained a pretty healthy fund balance. We're still able to set aside, including the board's 3%, where we're there. Some of the challenges that we're looking at going forward is the economy is facing significant headwinds, and we're really entering some turbulent times. The Fed yesterday increased interest rates 75 basis points, or 0.75%, which in all my years as treasurer, 25 basis points was typical, and that made big news. So this was an extreme move on them, and I think more reactive. I think they let inflation get out of hand and weren't monitoring it, and kind of a knee-jerk reaction. The market liked it yesterday. They didn't like it today. So all the gain that they got yesterday after they announced it went away today. You can see a lot of the factors. So we're looking at inflation, fears of prolonged inflation, supply chain bottlenecks, volatility of the stock market, and the war in the Ukraine is causing uncertainty, and markets don't like uncertainty. So that's a biggie. Just in Burbank, and I think, well, actually everywhere, we have staffing challenges. We have a lot of unfilled positions. And even though they may revise this flush with new discretionary education funds, when you're reconciling those priorities between the governor and the legislative bodies, we don't know where that's going to land. So this next slide talking about the challenges. So there's inflation where you can see where we're up at 8%, which is when you look at the CPI that's built in the budget. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see how effective the Fed's moves are. They have lots of tools in their tool chest, but if they let it get out of hand, it's really hard to rein it back in. The two bottom slides are reflective of what's happening in the stock market. So you're looking at the S&P 500, and you can see where that's just trailed down. Capital gains, which is for California, is a huge tax driver. That is going down, which is not good. This last plan that is on the agenda tonight is we're looking at our Educational Protection Account, or EPA spending plan. It was promoted by Prop 30, Prop 13 we know is property taxes. But they, so the EPA funds, though, are $21.8 million that we have this year spent on teacher salaries and related benefits, the whole thing. So that's where that money is going. And with that, I am done and would happy to answer any questions that you might have. Dr. Agakanian.
So my concern is about the PERS and STIRS, because they put a lot of their money in these investment packages, which are going to. And my concern is, will the state come back and take money from us, saying, well, the markets haven't done well and those packages are not doing well? I'm just curious, and is there any kind of a protection?
Those pensions have to be paid somehow. Those are promises to the participants, and somebody's got to foot the bill. It's taxpayers. I mean, I don't know that it's school districts. It probably is coming from any bucket that they can pull from.
Well, and that's why we reserved in our ending balance the uncertainty around STIRS and PERS. Next year's the first time they can change STIRS rates. So they can, CalSTRS board can vote to increase that from the 19% up, so we need to be cautious.
Thank you. This is, first of all, it's a lot of work. Also, to move the volume of money that you have through our books over the past few years has been a lot. So that's first and foremost, I think. Just acknowledging the work of our very understaffed fiscal services team. So thank you. Super staff that's there, but if we could get more, that'd be wonderful, I know. So I do think we're, I think this is trending towards a perfect storm situation, and it's one that we need to work actively to prepare our community for. Again, I think you put it all in the slides, but again, a lot of one-time money. A lot of that one-time money comes into the state through capital gains, and we're seeing dips in the stock market. That means significant dips in revenue for the state. We also, again, as Dr. Agakanian pointed out, have CalPERS, CalSTIRS that are invested in that market, and they are still recovering from the last recession, and that's why our rates were raised at the rate that they were. There you go. So on top of that, the trailer bills that are anticipated are, again, a lot of one-time money, and for the most part focused on funding projects, not necessarily long-term solutions. So that on top of gas going up, that on top of quite literally food prices could go up. Like, there are a number of just of costs that are hidden, frankly, right now, and hidden from view. And I want to be very cautious, and I hear the caution in some of the estimates around attendance, you name it, that I think are very, very smart. But I do think that we need to move forward with this budget process, and as we see revenues come in next year, and figure out that we need to be acting as if we are, enjoying the deficit that we are, which is a multi-million-dollar structural deficit that could balloon overnight to a double-digit million-dollar problem. And when your budget is $200 million, just short of $200 million, we're talking about massive reductions that could be a shock to the system if we don't plan. And even with the best planning, we need to be able to tell this story. So one, I appreciate that coming forward here. There's a few conversations as a result I'd like to explore. I think on some level we're exploring some of these. Some of these are very specific, like set-asides that aren't necessarily a part of the meta conversation about our budget. But like first, I know that we have a contract to secure our fleet vehicles. Possibly, are we converting those to electric? Or do we have an opportunity to do that?
Well, we purchased 25 vehicles out of lease from Enterprise last year to save the financing charges. So we have another batch of vehicles, but I mean, right now it's very hard to find vehicles. In fact, San Marino reached out to me last week and said, "Where can I find vehicles?" And I referred him to Enterprise. But we are leasing these vehicles currently. I think as we move forward, once we get past that, we can transition to the electric.
Yeah, I don't think it's a hard e-brake, but I do think let's transition. I mean, we are a power producer in this city because of the voters giving us the money to be able to put up solar panels on a lot of our school sites, and it just makes sense to me that if we're subsidizing our electric through that and some financing and all that jazz, but that we start phasing that out and that volatility can be phased out of our budget, hopefully. And maybe not in all situations, but in some situations. And again, that's just a harder number we can rely on moving forward. So that would be nice. And maybe it's over 3 years, maybe it's over 5. You tell me what's practical. But I think that that's a long-term solution that makes sense environmentally, all sorts of check boxes there.
I will say, if I can just interject, that facilities, we just had a demo of an electric powered lawnmower. And so we are transitioning to that.
Music to my ears. Yeah.
And I was just looking at my
it's
notes.
The law by 2024, we have to have converted.
Correct. I was just looking at my notes, and we're also getting those cheaper because it's through a grant, right?
Yeah,
So
our out-of-pocket cost is, if Larry has got if Mr. Cross has got the projections right, is $6,700, and they'll pick up the rest. I think these estimates came in. It was for a mid-size mower that was around between, depending on what options we get, $40,000 to $50,000. So that is a huge pickup for that.
Absolutely. Well, but as we have these one-time monies, it may be the moment, right? So that's where I'd love to take advantage of that ride if that's a possibility. The other conversation, frankly, is, we use a lot of reclaimed water thanks to the partnership with the city of Burbank. But again, we still pay for that water, and even if it is reclaimed. So moving towards reclaimed drought-tolerant species in the front of schools to scale back, I think that is. Well, and MWD, the Metropolitan Water District, offers a lot of subsidies per square foot usually. Sometimes those are more available than others. But again, I think at this point, let's get a plan on paper to reduce water usage by, over the next 10 years, we'll be converting landscaping. I think when we're talking about fields themselves, that's great for groundwater replenishment, you name it. But specifically the landscaping, I think, these are all minor costs here and there, but quite literally this district has survived with a little cut here, a little cut here, and frankly, by putting a lot of work on the backs of our employees above and beyond. So I want to be just, again, how we engage with that. I also want to make sure that this budget, and Mr. Frittner and I, along with Ms. Kukta, have talked about a real safety issue, which is the trademarking of school logos. We have reached out to social media companies at times when there have been imposter accounts that look like a school or an institution in our district, and those social media companies refuse at times to shut down those accounts, and it becomes a real problem. So I'd like to see money put aside for the legal costs potentially of exploring how to get those items trademarked, and then potentially for a graphic artist who may have to redesign a few logos if they are kind of royalty-free images that we've just kind of used. So anything on that front, I think that, again, it's a kind of a one-time expense. The trademark would be, I guess, ongoing on some rate, but I'd like to see that in this because I really do believe that's a safety issue. I also want to thank Dr. Knopik, who brought up the transitional kindergarten earlier. Opening those sections is it directly correlates to our enrollment. So thank you for being proactive on that, and thank you to the superintendent as well, who I know that was a priority of his. And I get, and then this one I have to admit is a harder comment, but it's one that I've asked for previously, I just haven't seen, is we need to have a conversation about community day school. And I'd like to understand what the current student support model looks like potentially moving forward if we're not housing on a campus. This is a campus community that I love very dearly. But with costs coming as they are, we need to start thinking now how we're going to serve that student population, because fiscally, I'm seeing it in the budget, and it's a rather large sum at this point for the number of students that we're serving. Doesn't mean I want to stop serving those students in every component, and those kids deserve our full efforts here. Having said that, like it seems to me pretty clear that with the directions of state law pertaining to community day schools, that there's some work that I think we can do there. So
Along with that, we have to use our properties efficiently too, right? So the sites, the places that house community day school, the ILA, all of it. So we need to have that be part of the conversation as well.
Absolutely. But again, do those solve all of our problems? No. Is it an attempt to start working on some of it? Yes. And I think it's important we talk about it now before. Again, we have a potentially $10 million deficit, and then we're looking at people like Ms. Weaver and saying, hey, how are you going to handle all the demand we're going to push your way? I think proactive planning gets us there. So either way, though, this is going to be a bumpy ride for the next few years. It always is, and we always kind of make it through it, but we're starting to see the real costs of this now. Again, it's the small things, but I would just really appreciate the report and the feedback. And I also want to thank this board. I know for our partners in labor, large reserves are troublesome when you have members who are struggling with the very same costs that we are, and who, yes, despite getting a 5% pay raise, are still far behind. We owe it to our employees to continue to do our best to get money to the bargaining table. We owe it to them, but we do that service by making the smart cuts necessary so that that's an opportunity down the road. The 6% reserve to me is a floor, not a ceiling. I do not support. I understand that a lot of folks hide money in reserves in an effort to keep it away. I get that. I think we've demonstrated rather consistently a commitment to try and get it in every dollar to folks as possible. If you don't believe that, I will say firsthand, I've been sitting at the table and we have all been pushing for that. And so I just want to think about that. It's really hard to say, let's bake in a raise to this, but legitimately we are going to need to bake in some sort of raise, or else we are going to face yet another crisis, which is, again, a 2-hour commute to come work to Burbank. People are already doing it. So, we just, Dr. Neiman and Dr. Paramo and Dr. Hill, and I'm sure Ms. Cuseo as well, have been working hard to hire. It's not easy. And again, we're going to make it harder and harder and harder on them to do that hiring if we're not smart in this budget. So again, I know that was a long thing, but I really want to prep this community who works so hard for our schools to understand that even though there's a lot of money flowing in, and I will say, as somebody who, yes, works for a member of the state legislature, these trailer bills are going to be game changers. Usually it's a fine-tuned fix here and there. Put it this way, they didn't make the deadline. There is a lot of unfinished business, including, individual one-time grants that each assembly member and state senators are trying to secure, but really unanswered long-term questions about funding formulas and you name it. So, I would like to partner with PTA more in the beginning of this school year to continue to tell this story, but I think if we are not talking about this as a budget crisis, we're not doing our community a service in this moment. So, thank you.
So since we're talking about budgets, I don't want to ask the question, but it's money related. I'd like to see next time how our paid and regular account is doing.
What?
Paid and regular, our investment account.
Oh. So, and Ms. Lowe just sent me the March 31st, the quarterly report, which I could share with you.
I know what it's going to look like.
Well, and I will say, because remember, we're conservatively investing, not in stocks and bonds, but what happens to bond values is when interest rates go up, your market value goes down.
Yeah.
So, and that's a consideration, we've been using that, and you won't recognize any losses if you hold the bonds to maturity, but if you sell them, you're going to recognize that loss. That is a decision that we make if we spend down the funds in the trust to pay, because we're going to have to sell those bonds, and it may not be the right time. So that is a consideration there.
Yeah. And then the second one is, so I appreciate if we can get that report.
Yeah.
The second one is not really it's just for our viewers. Once again, I've asked this before, but since we're talking about budgets, can I just explain to our viewers that the city budget is not the same as ours, and they can't fix our budgetary issues?
Yeah,
Because this
there's-
question keeps coming up.
Two different legal entities, completely different funding sources. The cities can raise their own money. They get a large percentage from sales tax and property taxes, but they also have the ability to charge fees, fines, you name it. And we are, whatever the state tells us we get, that's what we get. I mean, we can supplement with grants and other things we maybe can have some control over, but totally separate, different legal entities. And I mean, the city has supported us in the past and have donated money, to help when we built the two Memorial Field and updated Burbank High. So they've been very gracious with that. That was through redevelopment monies, so, which are gone. Yeah, they clawed all that money back.
But they can give us money for our budget.
No, well, they could, but, I mean, they could.
Thank you so much for all your work and all your numbers. Whew. Okay, 11D, report on the Education Protection Account, EPA, 2022, 2023. You're still there.
To switch notebooks. So, just flip to the right page. That's that amount that we told you about, the 20 million. It's all spent on teacher salaries and benefits. So that really is the gist of it.
Okay.
If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer that.
Good. Anyone? Okay. Moving on to 11E, report on excess reserves.
Okay. We talked in detail about those reserves. Let me make sure I get to the right place. Okay, here we are. So we talked about the components of fund balance, and it's the 10%. We're looking at making sure that we have the reserve for economic uncertainties, which is the 3%. You can see the chart in the report about where all of those land. You can see that the committed funds, if you take action on next Tuesday to adopt those, and we're within that 10% of the assigned, so that we don't have to pay back money because of the reserve cap. So we're in good shape.
Okay. Sure.
I know some of my colleagues don't like this question, but I will bring it up again, especially now with the economic concerns and woes. And do we have any land out there that's still sitting vacant, or are there any? And are there opportunities of? I'm not gonna say the word selling, but
No,
maybe
please don't.
multi.
I wouldn't say vacant. There's by CDS, there's the lot that is above that, Horseman.
Yeah.
We have the parking lot that's behind the police and fire station that we rent out. We just approved an extension on the lease for that.
Dr. Agahani, and I hear that. And we've talked about it
every time we talk about
well,
budget.
I don't support selling district property at this point. I think if you, as a renter in this community, to whoever who is now kind of settling in, and again, somebody born and raised here, who now is part of a generation who is priced out of this community, I know how precious property is. But this district, as an institution, deserves that for decades to come, if not in perpetuity. Having said that, we may need to become housing providers.
Yeah.
And that's a horrifying reality. But also, we're now hearing about the bond market. Perfect storm, folks. So this is why, yes, we have lots now, but quite literally, to keep custodians, to keep our teachers, to keep administrators here, we may need to build apartment buildings, subsidize that, and give that. If we don't think that's a part of our future, we are becoming the holistic social service organization, counseling, healthcare, food, housing. They're putting it on us and then saying, cap your reserves at 10%. So a reality, though. But if we, what we as a community and as a small district like this can remain nimble if we are smart about that and doing things like housing and doing things that allow us to remain kind of proactive to take care of this institute. But that's why I think more than ever, it's a no. But I think it's also a time to dream with that property too.
And I appreciate you saying, because that is what I'm seeing, partnership for housing, affordable housing, something like that.
It would have to be a partnership because we don't have the resources to build anything.
You bet.
So that's another problem. We could have the space, but where would you come up with the money? I mean, I guess we could do a bond.
Well, and I will tell you that we get approached periodically by developers that want to do a joint project.
And that's what I was saying,
partnership.
looking for partnerships. There was a time when the city wanted some of our space to put in a dog park, and that would have bought in a little bit of joint use funds, but, it's not a
You know
whole
what,
lot.
I want us to have this
I don't mean
conversation.
necessarily a dog park, but it's
We need
those
to look
kinds of
into it.
partnerships that would behoove us
Yeah.
for stuff that's just sitting there, not generating any funds.
You bet. I agree, and I think if capacity allows, I think it is the time to start looking into what kind of models could be deployed here. Not just that, I mean, in terms of legally, how we would even set this up. I know we, for instance, have a property right now that we lease that's a house. So we are, in some ways, a housing provider already. But yeah, absolutely, and really trying to figure out if this is a long-term part of it, because again, this is going to be something that would be financed most likely with either public-private partnership and or bond funds, which again, our voter approved requires 55%. That's a large threshold, especially with people being, frankly, upset. It's an upset climate generally. So if we can start exploring a model of some sort and bring back what that potentially looks like. Again, how many units of housing, requires how much oversight. As you build, the more you have, the more challenging it becomes. But I think it's good to have those conversations now, as Dr. Agakanian said.
And I'll give you a simple example. 5 years ago at the community college, when we were talking about housing, the answer was, we're not in housing business. They're about to put forward a bond for student housing now because it has become so challenging. And I think we can look at those models, look at a bond, and use some of our properties if needed for affordable housing. And I think we should look into it, and it's a very serious matter.
With the state kicking in funds to reduce the cost of adult education, it makes sense. Now, students will actually be afford to live somewhere because all their money's not going to higher ed.
Well,
It's tough.
And to Mr. Ferguson's point too about being able to provide some sort of a stipend to teachers and, both certificated and classified staff to live in Burbank, which we know is what we all want our communities to live here. And also too, to keep in mind that we do have foster and homeless youth that we work with. And so that is another really important factor to think about.
And I agree with you, and you can put into that. See, it started as a good conversation now. So can we look into this and try to see what's out there?
Yeah, we don't have to reinvent the wheel because there are other districts have done projects like that to provide housing for their employees. So I just want to interject one thing too, is when we're talking about one-time and ongoing funds, you sell property, one-time funds.
Right.
So keep that in mind too. That's an important thing.
And there's a cost. You lose money every time you sell property too. It just doesn't, so it may not, a $1 million property that you own free and clear doesn't generate you necessarily $1 million. So you need to remember that too.
And I did not support SB 9, which allowed R1 housing to be subdivided, basically, but not subdivided, but for additional density to be built in the back. However, we own a house, and so the question is can we look at potentially an ADU? And again, that seems to be more of a one-time fund kind of thing, but we might as well be maximizing revenue sources, and an additional renter could help. So again, little money here, little money there.
I think 75% of that lot has a structure on it.
Yeah, that backyard is pretty small. We'd have it's
it
an
would have to
oversized
go
garage.
up on top of the
so,
garage.
Yeah, but we could definitely explore.
Happen to know about it. All right, thank you. We'll move along. Thank you very much for all your work. Seeing no other comments, the public hearing is closed, and I'm sorry I didn't warn you ahead of time. My apologies. Okay, moving on to 12A, new and/or unfinished business. 12A is adoption of Resolution 46, specifying method of payment and word limitation for candidate statements.
President Tabbitt.
Mr. Ferguson.
I will move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 46, specifying the method of payment and word limitation for candidate statements as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Moving to 12B, adoption of Resolution 47 regarding the Education Protection Account, EPA, 2022 through 2023.
President Tabbitt.
Thank you.
I will move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 47 regarding the Education Protection Account, EPA, 2022 through 2023, for the portion of the state aid local control funding formula identified as EPA be spent on the current costs of certificated teachers' salaries and benefits as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second, Dr. Agakanian. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. 12C, adoption of Resolution 48 regarding the classification of fund balances in governmental funds.
President Tabbitt.
Mr. Ferguson.
I will move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 48 regarding the classification of fund balances in governmental funds to establish committed reserves for STRS, PERS increases and facility needs, roofs and HVAC, technology infrastructure and textbooks and curricular materials as presented.
Second.
Ooh,
I
thank
got
you for
through
the
it.
motion, and I'm going to give it to Dr. Weisberg because you haven't had one tonight. Yes. Thank you. We keeping score now? Discussion on this. In a wonderful world, I could just tell you, just don't pay the STRS and PERS anymore. They can just move forward, but that's not happening.
Unsubscribe. Mark as spam.
Yeah. There you go.
Didn't say that.
People got so mad they don't even know why.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. That was, just didn't happen.
Yep.
There we go.
Edit undo.
Don't edit that out.
Yeah. Rewind. Say my lines again.
My emails.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. 12D, adoption of district-wide goals for 2022 through 2023.
President Tabbitt.
Yes, Dr. Weisberg.
I move that we adopt district-wide goals for 2022-2023 as presented.
Thank you for the motion and the second, Dr. Agakanian.
Can I?
Yes, you may.
Can I
This
ask
is
that we-
discussion time.
Thank you. Can I ask that we do a end of semester check-in on the goals?
Yeah.
So we'll do first semester check-in on progress of the goals, and then end of year check-in.
I think that's great, too.
With that, I support. Yep.
Thank you. Did you have something, Mr. Freitner?
No,
to
I
it?
was just
Great.
in
Okay.
agreement.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was a rigorous aye.
It was.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. 12E, approval of amended class schedule at Monterey High School.
President Tabbitt.
Yes.
I will move the Board of Education approve the amended class schedule for Monterey High School effective June 17th, 2022, as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. Any discussion?
Yep.
Yes.
Can we get a presentation on this?
Sure, Dr. Paramo.
This is your moment.
Oh, well, sorry, you're right.
We couldn't just let
Just
you
says
sit in the
Dr.
audience alone all night. We got to bring you up, give you your moment. Yeah. I mean,
Good evening, Board President Tabbitt, distinguished board members, Superintendent Hill, and members of the audience. We'd like to go over, we have a presentation for you regarding the change in schedule for Monterey High School. And I am going to invite the amazing new principal of Monterey High School, Mrs. April Weaver.
Thank you. Amazing, yes. Okay. Let's
let's talk about. Okay, let's talk about the real important stuff tonight. Monterey schedule. Okay. I just want everybody to know, and thank you very much for letting me come present tonight. So I want to clear up anything, explain the process that we went through to get towards this new schedule and why. We've actually been talking about changing our schedule and increasing the minutes for a while, but then COVID hit. And then when we came back, we realized maybe that wasn't the best time. So this is actually a perfect time to increase our schedule. This is what we were looking at as a staff when we were looking at what should we do to build our new schedule. So we want to maximize the opportunity for the students to learn. We still want flexibility. Flexibility is very important to all of us, students, parents, and staff. We want to make sure that we build in some time for teachers to be able to call home, have parent meetings, and connect more with students. And we want to make sure that there is time for fun activities, clubs, and ways for kids to connect with school that's not just academic. Okay, so what you're looking at here is our current schedule. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the concerns are with the current schedule. And really, the support and intervention time is from 8 to 8:42 in the morning, and it is not utilized by the students. And very few students come. We did have students come play basketball, but very few students would come to meet with their teachers and get the support that they needed in order to be more successful at school. So that was something that we said we got to look at that time. Oh, can you go back real quick?
Sure.
Oh, no, it didn't. Oh, I thought you moved it. Okay, it was just a glitch. Okay. Then, if you see the bottom, there's another circle. This is when we saw the students have more issues with their behavior and disconnecting from school, wandering around campus, getting out of class, more referrals. And that is because we didn't have any breaks between 10:30 and 1:40. There's no lunch in this schedule. They had a short 20-minute break, and then they were asked to be on 4 hours. And that was something else that the students expressed concern with. They would ask me a lot, why can't we have lunch? Why can't we have 2 nutritions? Why can't we, there needs to be something. We can't sit here for that long. And I'm like, yeah, totally, I agree. So that is something else that we wanted to fix. Okay, so what works with our current schedule is that the students do start later, which is great. They can go to work earlier in the day, and they have a flexible schedule, but what doesn't work, I kind of explained it, they're hungry. One thing is that the periods at Monterey do not align with the periods at Burroughs and Burbank High, so students who did want to dual enroll or take an elective, or they were in a sport and wanted to continue to condition with the team, it was very difficult to align it all up so that it would work. And next slide. Okay. So I do apologize. We're still kind of talking about this as a staff. We are flipping, our suggestion is to flip our advisory period and our lunch so that advisory is before lunch. I'm just telling you that. But here's kind of what we came up with. We're increasing the minutes in the day, but we're also including lunch. We're including an advisory time, which is something we've wanted to do for years, so we're all super duper excited about that. And we're putting an intervention time at the end of the day that is optional for students who meet certain criteria and they don't need that added support. So example, you've got great attendance, you're doing great in your classes, and your reading and writing skills are near grade level or average. You don't have to go to intervention unless you want to, because we're gonna offer some really fun activities. I'm gonna co-teach a culinary arts class, jewelry making. I'm super excited about that one. But so if kids want to stay, they can. But really, it's going to be for the kids who need the most support. Did you have a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Define they're doing great.
Okay, so that exactly. So I'm going to work a little bit with my leadership team on that, but right now we're looking at 90% attendance, 70% or better in all their classes, and no suspensions. That's what we're looking at. because that's pretty good. All right, next one. Okay, so here's an example of how we can continue to make this a flexible schedule. And again, we're flipping those lunch and advisory, but it's the same idea. So for example, in example number 1, we have some kids who want to go to Burroughs or Burbank High for period 1. Then I can they'd be excused from us for period 2 and just come for the rest of the day. Now, continuation school, you only have to attend 4 periods a day, unlike the comprehensive school. So until you're 18, you can't have anything less than 4. So I got to make sure everybody's got at least 4, but most kids, because they're behind in credits, need 5 or 6. So really, how many classes you need is based on how many classes you need in order to graduate. And so example number 2, we've got, maybe there's a student with a doctor's note that needs to sleep in. They can still have that flexible schedule. Example number 3, this is a student that might leave early for some other types of reasons. You can go to the next slide. Here's a couple more examples. Really, there's an infinite number of possibilities for how we can be flexible here. And I think that this actually, let me try, and I'm sorry that I didn't get this to you guys earlier, but can you pass these out? This is an example of what it will look like. Monday, is a shorter day. It's like or early release day, and that's going to be a day that we do professional development meetings, all that kind of fun stuff there. I think that, I think that there's nothing else I really want to show you, just some more examples. So for these schedules, it's easier to dual enroll. Kids will actually be leaving, if they're only there for 4 periods and advisory, they're actually leaving a little earlier than they're leaving now. Now kids are taking 6 classes and leaving at 1:40, but this isn't necessarily something that the students can't handle. I think that they're actually really, really going to like how we're going to structure this and the activities at lunch and try to connect them a little bit more with school and make it a little bit more fun. And what's nice, the students will get access to more food, more meals. They can still work after school. Students, they're only allowed to work 4 hours a day, regardless of what time they start work. So they're still going to be able to get work permits, and I'm more flexible on those than Burroughs and Burbank High because I'm trying to build in some more workability and things like that, or just help them and guide them through work experiences. I think is there any more slide? Oh, and we did meet with the students, and the students were, they were concerned. I did make sure to stress to them when we were meeting, and I'm trying to gather ideas from them, that we're still alternative ed, because something that happens at Monterey, whenever we make a change, the students say, "You're turning us into Burroughs," and that's what they say. And so I had to really focus with them and say, no, we're focusing on essential standards. We're not going to be increasing necessarily the depth of the workload that the A through G classes have. We're going to continue to work with you. We still have small class sizes. We are going to provide accommodations and just build that into the day and the schedule with all the teachers. So we're still alternative ed, even if we attend school until 3:30. Yeah, we still are. So I think that is it. Oh, yeah, okay. Now, I also sent you, I just was going over some data, the end of the year data, and so what I wanted to show you guys, I created a little fact sheet for you guys. So on the front is just some basic information about our attendance for Q4, basically, because when I was talking with the staff about who gets a lunch pass, because we're still going to do lunch passes and kids will get to maybe if they earn their way out of the intervention. So I gave you some Q4 data. This is the data that we're going to be looking at to determine who would be able to go out for lunch or who does need to stay for intervention. And as you can see, we're still really struggling with attendance, like we learned earlier in the night that attendance has been difficult. So we're still doing that. On the back, I gave the iReady data for our school, and as you can see, it's very concerning still. Students are still really struggling with math specifically, so I really want to work with our math teacher. We are going to build in, during our intervention time, I'm going to be building in a lot of like STEAM activities. I've bought some Pitsco materials, and that time we'll be trying to teach math through like building bridges and rockets and, you know, fun things. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you because this is another reason why I think that the students would benefit from being at school a little bit longer. And yes.
Two questions. First one is regarding math, because this is coming across now to higher ed too. Do we have any? I know there's no single answer why this is becoming so difficult.
Yeah.
But just based on your observations, what do you think?
Oh, you know, it's so hard though.
Yeah.
I mean, because I know that, you know, at the comprehensive site, the scores don't look like this. I know that this is probably a little bit different. I mean,
but it is a problem, even
yeah,
into higher ed now.
yeah, because I think math and writing are the hardest things to learn, and they're the hardest skills to learn. And so I think that sometimes, you know, I don't know. I think that our culture, sometimes we do too many skills at once. I'm one of those people who thinks that you really have to work on a skill for a really long time and really master that skill before you move on. And I do know just from my son who's in elementary school, like he does so many different types of skills in math that it's hard for him to transfer that knowledge sometimes. Yeah, so, you know, but I don't necessarily think it's that our curriculum's bad or our teachers are bad. I think that it's just something to keep looking at.
So you don't think, and I know I have my colleague, the teacher, but you know when we changed how we teach math several years ago, right? When
you like the Common Core math?
Yeah, Common Core math. You think that has to do anything? I'm just curious.
No, I think math is difficult. I know that for myself, I was a very poor math student in school, and when I started looking at the Common Core stuff, I'm like, ugh, I wish I had this. I probably would have done a lot better. I think it just depends on, you know, how your brain processes math and if you can connect it to real world applications. I know when I actually can connect it and it makes sense is when I understand it and I learn. So,
Well, sometimes too, in elementary school, where you're teaching multiple subjects, math sometimes is a difficult, not saying they're not good at it, but is a difficult subject for some teachers to teach. And so then I know for myself, when I went through elementary school, it was math was packet work. So you'd test and then you'd start your packets. Well, English was right before that. So as long as I sat quietly, no one paid any attention whether I was really working on my math or not.
Right.
But I mean, you know, that's and that's the way it worked then. So it's difficult. When I was teaching 5th grade, math was something I had to work on all the time to really. And when our principal went to, hey, let's, you know, it was a 5th grade at a middle school, intermediate school. Let's have teachers teach to their strengths. So all of a sudden I didn't have to teach math anymore. And the math scores went up because people who really got it and understood and how to teach math were teaching to the kids. And it was better. So.
And I think that what I like, I mean, I know that when kids come to Monterey, they're with us for a short amount of time. I try to make it a powerful amount of time. You know, it's really important part of like short amount of time. But what I want to start doing is when I gather this information, working with the comprehensive sites to try to say, this is the kids that we're finding and how can we maybe help them before they come to our site at the same time. So I'll be working with the comprehensive principals on that.
Okay.
My second, so based on what I'm seeing also, the better the students, the more flexible they basically are. which is
Yeah.
a good incentives to do better.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you
Thank
have to kind of motivate them.
Thank you.
Thank you for this, and thank you for first of all, I really appreciate the options here, and that I think is the most critical component for my support. Like here and in this thought, I want to look at example 3 if we can, if we can put that up.
Sure.
So as you well know, we've had some students come down to public comment and offer feedback on this schedule. And some of the families I've interacted with, and certainly some of the students, have talked about both careers on the books and off the books, and very much as a part of trying to, provide for their families, right? Very sincere, very honest, but not always the thing you want to mention, and not always the thing that is easy to talk about. This school is such an amazing institution in that way that we can serve those students. But what I'm looking at with this advisory period here, and you talked about your requirement, if there's an economic issue or challenge, can a student who is under those, can we waive that for that? Or can we figure out how to create alternative options so we can get them out after lunch?
Well, the advisory, like I said, and I'm sorry that it didn't get in, is going to be
Is going to be
before
flipped.
lunch, so that those kids could leave after advisory and go home.
So I guess just generally, could we, in certain situations, could we waive the advisory period requirement to allow, for economic reasons, to allow a student off campus earlier to go work?
Well, I think we'd have to look, because there are like legal minutes that they have to be in school.
But you have that in the 4 periods, right? Because you said it's a minimum of 4 periods.
Right. So depending on that student and like when they showed up to school.
Right.
Right. And so yes.
Okay.
It would just have to, we would really just have to make sure that everything was being met and that reducing their schedule wouldn't mean that they didn't graduate on time.
Right. Okay. So if we can, and first of all, you've been on the campus. You're also a new principal. I want to support you, and I want to support the leadership team there. I do want to make sure there's some flexibility for the human moments, which I think I think your campus does an amazing job of that. So I just want that to be baked in, and that understood here. So we don't have somebody, frankly, a year from now coming to the podium and saying, "This is how it hurt me. This is how this schedule change impacted me, and it impacted me terribly." Again, some people will be impacted, I have no doubt, but I just really want to focus on some flexibility there. And then we do a check-in a year from now.
Yes.
On just the overall effectiveness, what you found. I think the math problem is interesting. We've talked about the math problem generally with our comprehensive high schools, but again, with one time, if there's a way we can support you as you try and tackle this and your staff, I think it's important we do that. So, but otherwise, I again, thank you for the work on this. It's pretty evident. So.
I mean, just want to thank Dr. Paramo and you and Mr. Geyer and the students who reached out. I mean, it was a really interesting process, and especially for all of you taking time out to walk through all of this with me as well was really, really helpful. I think checking in again in a year is a great idea. I expect it's going to be really positive. And I appreciate the sort of recognition of like, next time there's a big change, how are the ways in which we can be communicating with our students differently? I don't think better is the right word, because I do think it was a really well done process. But I'm excited to see what I think are going to be the really positive changes that the schedule change brings.
Yeah. And I do know that the students kind of found out about this change before we were ready to present it to them. So that is something that I'm going to work with my staff on, as well as making sure that we're all on board with when we present information to the students and how we present it to the students, and making sure that when we are moving forward, we're painting it in a positive light and supportive of the students.
Understood. Thank you for the presentation. I will second what my colleague said, especially the examples of the flexibility. I think that was probably the number one concern we heard among the students. And you said it yourself, if there's any change, they're afraid it's turning into Burroughs or Burbank. And and they know that wasn't working for them, so they don't want to see that happen. And that was one of my prime concerns when when this issue came up. These examples help show that they're still baking in a lot of flexibility, that it won't be simple. And I know we'll still have the much smaller class sizes and the individualized attention.
Absolutely.
I'll be honest, I still have, I think I will be ready to support this. I do worry about culturally at Monterey High. We've mentioned accommodating students, who want to dual enroll, maybe for sports or extracurriculars. I'm not sure how many students have, looked for that in the past. Dr. Pramo's probably got an idea on that.
Sure.
I know anecdotally, and I can't say how many who have said this, but having talked to students over the years at Monterey who were involved in sports or choir or whatever, and that was the only thing that they were paying attention to. And when they got to Monterey, they realized what their focus could be and could help it. I almost feel like that. I know some students it'll help and they'll want it, but I worry about it being, taking away from what Monterey can provide for them. So that's a concern of mine. I worry about I know you talked a little bit about the lunch passes. Aware of how it works at the comprehensive high school is very much grade based, and showing what we've dealing with as far as credit recovery. I think that's got to be, we've got to find some way to make that an accommodation that works for the student base at Monterey. I am happy to hear about you talked a lot about the curriculum changes, the ideas that you're going to work in. I do think that's very positive because, again, I think we've seen in the past that's one of the things that really works at Monterey is the yoga class, and things like that, things that are a little bit off, different. But I want to make sure we're still retaining what really works academically for the students, what brings them back to where they need to be, and I'm sure that's what you want too. And that's why I said you actually, I had more questions that you actually had already covered in this presentation, so I appreciate that.
But what I do want to stress is that the kids that we're getting now after COVID are very different types of kids than what we had before COVID. So the kids that we're getting now are, not all of them, but many of them are GATE students, honor students, AP students. And these are students that did not attend Monterey generally before COVID. And they really do still want that connection with opportunities to take those elective classes or an AP class or whatever. If it's possible in their schedule, they're aware that we're not going to be able to make magic happen. But what we're seeing now is kids who are very academically successful, many of them, and because of COVID, with depression, just not logging in, not connecting with school, anxiety, they failed multiple semesters, and that is why they need to attend Monterey. So it is, I hear your point on that, and there's many students who want nothing to do with going back to Burroughs. It is not going to be a mandatory thing, but for a lot of kids that I'm doing transition meetings on now, like this last quarter, multiple students who are like, but track is my life, but choir is my life, and they can't imagine an academic world without it. And I'm trying to create a school so that we can let kids get the support that they need and participate in those electives or classes that they really, really want.
Okay.
Thank you. The new term is called cascading collective trauma.
Yeah, I believe it.
And just thank you for your leadership. I really, truly, it's very clearly thought through. So just thank you, and really wishing you the best of luck as you kind of deploy this. So really.
Can I,
Well,
can I ask one
sure.
more question? And I don't know if you have really a definitive answer. I know you've said you've talked to a lot of the students. We, as was mentioned, we've had a lot of the students at several of the meetings, including where they turned in a petition signed allegedly by all of them. Do you feel like you've connected with a large percentage of the students, the returning students that, like you said, obviously part of it was just the way it rolled out, the way the information rolled out, but do you feel like they, a significant portion do now understand, what's coming and are, even if they're not completely buying in, at least accepting that this isn't the end of the earth?
Yeah, I think that they're aware, and I've heard a lot of kids say, well, okay, as long as I don't have 4 hours of homework every night, okay, that's fine. Like, okay, I'm good, that's good. And a lot of the kids were like, that's fair. When I explained it and we're still going to be flexible, they said, that's fair. They still don't necessarily jump for joy at some of this, right? But at the same time, I think a lot of the kids that I have talked to, they understand why we're doing this, and then it's coming from a place of like caring. And I told them, I said, you all know me. I need you to trust me that I am never going to steer the school into something that's bad for students. And we still will, we might have to have difficult conversations with some students, and there's definitely going to be people who are going to not like it all the time. But I think, and most of the parents I've talked to have actually, they're fine and they're good. And a lot of parents that I've talked to in past transition meetings were not happy that the kids were getting out at 1:40. Right. So they did not like that idea. So right now, I haven't had any parents actually call and say, I don't want my kid to attend Monterey. Everybody's like, all right, can my younger child come? Are they 16 yet? That's right. So we will have a couple kids that are going to not necessarily voice positive thoughts on this. But overall, I think that the kids are gonna, overall, I think they're gonna see that it's still a great place and a good school.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody? Thank you. Any other questions?
Let's vote.
Okay.
No? Okay.
Yeah, call for the question. There we go. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Another robust aye, and motion carries 5-0.
Maybe we can get out at 3 p.m. now. 3 p.m.
Yeah. 12F, approval of universal pre-kindergarten plan.
President Tabbitt.
Yes, sir.
I'll move the Board of Education approve the Universal Pre-Kindergarten Plan effective June 17, 2022 through July 30th, 2024, and that the authority to sign this agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Second.
Thank you, and thank you for the second, Dr. Weisberg. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 12G, approval of expanded learning opportunities program plan.
President Tabbitt.
Yes, sir.
I will move the Board of Education approve the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program Plan effective June 17, 2022 through June 30th, 2025, and that the authority to sign this agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second.
Best acronym ever, ELOP. Just saying. Go ahead.
Solid.
That's great. We need to start calling it ELOP.
ELOP.
Awesome. And then every time I'll have to go ELOP. Any further discussion besides the acronym? Great. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. 12H, acceptance of gifts.
President Tabbitt.
Yes, sir.
I'll move that the Board of Education take formal action accepting the following gifts to the district and that the board president convey in an upbeat and sassy tone the appreciation to the donors.
Second.
Thank you for the motion. Cecily, she said. All to NN. All those in favor of accepting the gift report, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Gift report passes 5-0. All right. The with much appreciation, The Burbank Arts Education Foundation, BAEF, wishes to donate to the district $417.52 to be used for materials and supplies at Dolores Huerta Middle School. Burbank Arts Education Foundation wishes to donate to the district $5,000 to be used for Instrumental Music Association materials and supplies at Burbank High School. Burbank Arts Education Foundation wishes to donate to the district $433 to be used for Laura Flossie Good Mornings at Thomas Edison Elementary School. D, Burbank Arts Education Foundation wishes to donate to the district $586.18 to be used for Gianna Bertoli at Thomas Edison Elementary School. The Blackbaud Giving Fund wishes to donate to the district $50 to be used for materials and supplies at Thomas Edison Elementary School. McKinley Elementary FRC wishes to donate to the district $9,990 to be used for education through Music LA, ETMLA, at William McKinley Elementary School. The Pledgeling Foundation wishes to donate to the district $43.50 to be used for materials and supplies at Dolores Huerta Middle School. Keller Williams Realty wishes to donate to the district $4,000 to be used for 2022 Red Day at Magnolia Park. Bret Harte PTA wishes to donate to the district $3,000 to be used for piano maintenance at Bret Harte Elementary School. Bret Harte PTA wishes to donate to the district $15,000 to be used for a kiln installation, disposal, and maintenance at Bret Harte Elementary School. Bret Harte PTA wishes to donate to the district $10,000 to be used for garden installation and expense at Bret Harte Elementary School. Bret Harte PTA wishes to donate to the district $5,000 to be used for library beautification, updating, and maintenance at Bret Harte Elementary School. Oh, yeah, this is
Great.
Yeah, this is the end of the year stuff. It's awesome. Bret Harte PTA wishes to donate to the district $500 to be used for art display and plastic placards to Bret Harte Elementary School. Bret Harte PTA wishes to donate to the district $500 to be used for folding tables at Bret Harte Elementary School. Bret Harte PTA wishes to donate to the district $200 to be used for printer maintenance at Bret Harte Elementary School. Miller Elementary FRC wishes to donate to the district $492.56 to be used for materials and supplies at Joaquin Miller Elementary School. Elise Aliberti wishes to donate to the district $100 to be used as needed at Providencia Elementary School. Rochelle Marina wishes to donate to the district $250 to be used district-wide as needed. Rafael Staros wishes to donate to the district $20 to be used district-wide as needed. Emily Weisberg wishes to donate to the district $55 to be used for AP Advanced Placement Tests for economically challenged students. Armand Agakanian wishes to donate to the district $110 to be used for AP Advanced Placement Tests for economically challenged students. Kathy Wills wishes to donate to the district $55 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Stacy Cashman wishes to donate to the district $55 to be used for AP Advanced Placement Tests for economically challenged students. Brian Smith wishes to donate to the district $110 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Sharon Caseo wishes to donate to the district $110 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Suzanne Wirtz wishes to donate to the district $55 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Toby Black wishes to donate to the district $55 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Michael and Caroline Cusimano wishes to donate to the district $500 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Debbie Kutka wishes to donate to the district $275 to be used for AP Advanced Placement Tests for economically challenged students. Vic and Sue Georgino wishes to donate to the district $250 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. William and Marilyn Wiggins wish to donate to the district $55 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. David Donahue and Victoria Toragian, wishes to donate to the district $110 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Timur Tessimer wishes to donate to the district $275 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Sharon Draper wishes to donate to the district $110 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Shazare and Robert Moeller, Shay, sorry Shay, and Robert Moeller wishes to donate to the district $110 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Dave and Judy Kemp wish to donate to the district $55 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Nathan and Alma Rubenfield wish to donate to the district $200 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. Bill and Lynn Abbey wish to donate to the district $110 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. An anonymous donor wishes to donate to the district $55 to be used for AP tests for economically challenged students. And finally, last but not least, Staples wishes to donate to the district 540 boxes with assorted office supplies to be used as needed at Joaquin Miller and George Washington Elementary Schools. Thank you so much for all the donations. Our students are in good hands with folks who very much care about them, so appreciate it. Okay, consent agenda.
President Tabbitt.
Yes, sir.
I will move items 13A through 13AT, except for which items board members wish to pull. And then I have a few polls.
Okay, so we need to pull, I believe, Ms. Clark, correct me if I'm wrong, 13D.
Yep.
Second.
Second by Dr. Agakanian. Sorry for jumping that gun.
Got it.
Oh, that's the wrong thing to say. I believe we need to do
13D.
13D because it's now an amended
Right.
minutes.
Right. And
So,
I'd also like to pull 13X, 13Y, 13Z, XYZ, 13Y, 13Z, 13AA, and 13AI.
you'll remind us again.
I
got XYZ.
Yep, 13X,
AA.
13Z, 13X, 13Y, 13Z, 13AA, and 13AI.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so, yep, the motion, someone?
I already
That was
made it. Yep.
Okay, and you seconded it, okay. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda except for 13, hold on, there's one before that, 13D, 13X, 13Y, 13Z, 13AA, and 13AI, as provided.
There you go.
Aye.
Well done.
Thank you.
And sassy.
Dude, I'm sweating over here. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, let's start with 13D because that's easy peasy.
President Tabbitt.
Yes, sir.
I will move the approval of minutes of the
Amended
meeting
minutes.
of June 2nd, 2020, as amended.
Oh,
Second.
my.
See how I did that?
Yeah.
See how I did
Gotcha,
that? Thank
gotcha.
you. I see you.
Okay, I stand corrected, sir.
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? Great. 13D carries 5-0. Let's move on to 13X.
I'd actually just like to see 13X, Y, Z, and AA tabled. Just we've had discussions about the equity of access and of individuals going to on field trips, frankly, in this district. And so this we've had discussions about this before.
Can I ask a couple questions about, is it COVID-related that you're concerned or accessibility for everybody?
I think there are discussions that have been had about making sure that every student feels safe when they go to field trips. And I want to make sure that we have safeguards in place. And we've talked about that before sending kids on those field trips. So until I see those safeguards in place, I don't want to approve long-term contracts that do that. And I've also been on the record about that earlier. So
Yeah, I just want to be really clear about what it is that you're asking for. I'm not arguing. I just Do you follow yeah, school me. Tell me. When you say
I
safe,
think
do you
we've
want
talked-
students to understand where they're going, I'm really unclear. Please be patient with me.
Dr. Hill?
Help a poor girl out.
No, my understanding is there's direction from the board is to come back with some field trip guidelines in the future, but I did not think it would impact these outdoor schools. They have to put a deposit for the schools to go. They're filling up quickly. There's not that many dates for our schools.
So I'm sorry that you didn't plan for this, but I think it was a part of discussions that we said that until we had a policy in place.
But also I gave an update to the board about the situation, and that has changed.
Okay, well, once again,
And so it's
I just,
not- it's not the
I'm just
direction-
saying, once again, we make commitments and then they flip. So
Well, they flipped because there's new information. I gave a letter to the whole board providing the update on that situation.
So we have
So
to go-
the board's going to have to vote on this.
Right, we're gonna have to take a vote. I'm sorry, but that's.
Yeah, this is
the
what
way-
happens.
Right, it does come down to a board vote, a majority, and so on and so forth. Oh.
Wow.
I know. Okay, well, so we're gonna have to, can we call for a vote for all 5 of them at one time? Are you okay with that? or
Four.
do they have to be
There's
done in-
4. I think there's. looks like
X,
there's
Y, Z, and
4.
AA.
Yeah, there's 4 that are referencing outdoor science.
her mic's on. Her mic.
You're right. Okay, so XYZ. All right, let's just start. Let's just do one at a time. We'll just make it easier.
And AA.
Yeah.
And AA. Okay. Yes. Okay, so approval of contracts with High Trails, Inc. for McKinley and Miller Elementary School's Outdoor Science School. Discussion, or we've had it. but
We
if there's
need a
anybody
motion,
more?
correct?
Yes.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve the contract with High Trails effective June 17th, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and that the authority to sign the agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Second.
Thank you
Okay.
for the motion and the second. Any discussion?
Okay. If we approve this contract, we still, are they, you said they need deposits, but are they setting dates right away? And if so, I agree with my colleague that there needs to be, we need to have, assure the safety of our students. Will we still be able to put, requirements in place, before they can fulfill that? Are they going to lose deposits if they put them down?
Each contract does have a cancellation provision. I don't know if Dr. Knappich or Ms. Kukta know what the cancellation fees are.
I get it, but we made that
I
commitment.
think there was a time frame where it would be no loss and the deposit would be refunded. So there would still be time to change our minds and pull back the reservation.
Have these schools been to this outdoor science school before?
Yeah.
It's a repeat. Well, there's so many of them.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
could
no,
go to
totally.
a different one. I just
Yeah,
want to make sure that they're.
7 all told between the
Yeah,
4
each one of them
motions.
have been there previously. They do have a cancellation policy. They would be putting their deposits down. And what the companies do is they go ahead and either retain the deposit and hold it for the next time that they would go, or they return the deposit. And it varies by company.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, all those then in favor of approving 13X, please say aye.
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 There's a second part to the vote.
Well, I'm just thinking.
Okay.
I was waiting for everybody before.
Aye.
You're taking the.
You said all those in favor say aye.
You're right,
I'm
I
waiting
did.
for the other half.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. 13Y, approval of contracts with Thousand Pines Outdoor Educators for Edison Hart and Washington Elementary Schools for Outdoor Science School.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve the contract with High Trails effective June 17th, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and that the authority to sign the agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. Further discussion or call for the vote?
They're all the same.
Yep, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. 13Z, approval of contracts with Emerald Cove Outdoor Science Institute for Emerson Elementary School Outdoor Science School.
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
I move that the Board of Education approve the contract with Emerald Cove Outdoor Science Institute effective June 17th, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and that authority to sign the agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-1. 13AA, approval of contracts with Los Angeles County Outdoor Science School for Jefferson Elementary School for Outdoor Science School.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve the contract with the Los Angeles County Office of Education effective June 17th, 2023 through June 30th, 2023, and that authority to sign the agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. That was AA, so moving to AI, which is different.
Yep.
Okay. Approval of agreement for professional services, Hutch and Cesario Attorneys at Law.
Just a question on this. This includes Melissa Hatchett. This, correct? Okay, thank you. I'm not going to support this contract tonight. I have not been totally happy with the services, so I'm voting against it tonight. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion first, but thank you.
Madam President.
Yes.
Excuse me. I move that the Board of Education approve an agreement between Burbank Unified School District and Hatch and Cesario Attorneys at Law to perform specific services effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, not to exceed $150,000 according to the coding, and that authority to sign the agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. Any discussion?
So this is for
Special education attorneys
previous or
for the next
That's
year.
to provide services for the next year.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 3-2. And that is all. So, thank you for that. Now, request to address the board. I have 3 cards. The first name I have is Kelsey Myers, followed by Callie Myers. Unless you want to come together or switch the, I'm good with you switching roles or places.
whatever you want to do.
Come on up, Callie. So you're going to need to state your name,
Okay. All right.
even though I
Hi.
kept calling you Callie. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay. I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay.
Hi, my name is Callie Myers. I'm going to 8th grade at Luther Burbank Middle School. My sister starts 6th grade at Luther this fall. She graduated from Roosevelt Elementary School in May. My mom is a teacher at Roosevelt. During my life as a Burbank student, we have always had lockdown drills in our classes. Our teachers lock the doors, they turn off the lights, and then we just wait. Sometimes they just tell us to drill. We never actually know. All we can do is wait. It's been 45 seconds since I set the timer. A person can drive 800 feet from the new Gun World store and to Roosevelt Elementary in 45 seconds. I'm tired of waiting, but it feels like all students like me can do. Think back to when you were 13. On your summer break, did you spend it asking grown-ups to take care of gun stores out of school zones? It's been 1 minute and 15 seconds. That's how long it takes to drive from a different store called Guns LA to Luther Burbank Middle School, where my sister and I go to. 1 minute and 15 seconds is also how long it takes to go from yet another gun store called Guns Direct to Burroughs High School. I plan on going to Burroughs when I go to high school. Sitting in a classroom with the doors locked and the lights off is not part of my hopes, plans, or dreams. Tonight, I am asking for our school district leaders to have courage. Make safety a priority for our school district. It has been 2 minutes. Are you wondering why I set the timer for 3 minutes and 30 seconds? That's the average response time for the Burbank Police Department to an emergency. And so we wait together in this room and we get to choose. Do we stay silent, or do we use our voices to say this is not okay? Our schools and our students are the reflection of our shared future. Kids and teachers belong in school zones. Weapon dealers do not. Thank you.
Thanks, Callie.
And by the way, we still have 1 minute and 13 seconds before the police would arrive.
And that's from the time they're called.
Yeah.
Good point. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Kelsey Myers, followed by Mira Varma.
In a moment. Thank you for having listening to us tonight. I'm a BUSD parent of 2 kids and married to an amazing BUSD teacher. Urge the school board to tell City Council to create municipal level gun store and weapon-free buffer zones around our schools as a student and employee health and safety measure. Asking to install weapon-free zone signs in front of the gun stores within these zones. Like there's one in front of the Office Depot right over here on Burbank Boulevard. I don't see why we can't have one from the weapons dealers. Question for the board: what do we do if we see someone carrying a weapon inside of a school zone? I don't know. Do we call the police? Especially if they're walking on the street, or I don't know if there's guidance on that, especially given that there's a new business going into a elementary school zone. And then also wondering if the board has a position or a statement about weapons being sold, carried, and transported inside of our school zones. We have sort of in front of the elementary schools or the schools, there's the California and federal guidance of no weapons within 1,000 feet. I don't know if there's any sort of consolidated statement that's available or guidance that can be issued to the community. There's a lot of questions about that. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mira Varma. Did I pronounce that right?
It's pronounced Mira.
Mira.
Yep.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Hill, and district staff. My name is Mira Varma, and my pronouns are she, her. I am an alumna of Burbank High School, class of 2018, and as of last week, I'm officially an alumni of UCLA. Thank you. I'm an activist for mental health. Since the age of 14, I've been advocating for mental health while struggling with my own. This past May, I was invited to the White House where I met President Biden, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, and Surgeon General Murthy to discuss the mental health crises in our country. I am here to discuss implementing the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline on the back of middle school and high school ID cards all throughout Burbank Unified School District. When I was a senior at Burbank High, I experienced a lot of mental health challenges I wish no student has ever had to go through. I almost lost my life to suicide, and that is something that could have been prevented if I flipped my ID card over and saw the hotline on the back. There are millions of students that die by suicide each year, and today I am speaking for them and their families that grieve the loss of their loved one. Suicide is the leading cause of death for individuals 10 to 24 years old. And in this country, one person dies by suicide every 11 minutes. This is something that is preventable. At UCLA, 2 years ago, administration made it mandatory to have the hotline on the back of all student ID cards. Implementing a policy like this is how you prevent suicide and mental health crises. According to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, only 1 in 4 callers are in suicidal distress, which means 75% of callers are not calling because they're in crisis. They're calling on behalf of a family member or to receive advice for a loved one that is in crisis. Having this hotline on the back of ID cards would serve as a resource for students in distress. Even knowing that a resource is there, if you simply flip over your card, can be a great source of comfort to someone. This definitely would have helped me when I experienced my mental health crises at Burbank High. I don't want any other student to struggle in silence like I did. Through printing this 10-digit number on the back of all ID cards, we can save lives, and this is something that needs to be done, especially because Burbank Unified has the funds to do this, and I'm sure we can work with the people that print ID cards in all of the middle schools and all of the high schools. And I just want to remind everyone that mental health is health, and 1 in 5 people are diagnosed with a mental illness in this country, but 5 in 5 people have mental health. And, you don't have to be diagnosed with an illness to take care of your mental health. And by just flipping your ID card over, you can save a life or you can save your own. Thank you.
Thank you. Good timing too, Nita. Okay. Superintendent response?
Thank you, President Tabbitt, and thank you for our speakers. It's great to see you, Ms. Varma. I want to just share that it's now a state law in California that ID is required, and we do that here in Burbank Unified. That happened after you graduated. I believe it was Senator Portantino's bill that required that, but we are doing that now. So I want to rest assured, but I really appreciate your advocacy for mental health when you were here and then beyond. And so it's been great to follow you and your advocacy and the great work you've been doing. For Mr. Myers and Ms. Myers, thank you both. I know, Mr. Myers, we had a brief email exchange, but it's great for you to come here. Ms. Myers, that was unbelievable. You rocked that. I mean, you gave me chills, you gave me hope, and you also highlight how sad I am that you are spending your summer break at 10 o'clock at night having to advocate for this, but I greatly appreciate your advocacy. I know the board has had conversations with the city council about this issue around gun stores. We're having a joint meeting on July 19th. If you're available or able to send that video that I saw you take, I think everyone needs to keep hearing that message. It inspires us, it encourages us to do more, and we will. So thank you so much. Mr. Myers, if anybody sees someone with a gun inside our school zones, within the area, please call 911. And that's the quickest way to address that. We want to make sure that we confront those individuals and they know that it is not a place. We want our schools, as you said, to be safe zones. And I know part of the joint meeting is going to be the conversation of what more can we do because with the rules right now is you can have a gun in a private residence or in a retail store within our school gun zones. That just doesn't make sense because you're going to step right outside. And I know the board has started those conversations, and we're going to have those together with the city council on, again, July 19th. So thank you both.
My colleagues, anyone? Sir? Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Verma, thank you very much for your comments. And I think besides the law, I think one area also we need to start having a bigger conversation is within certain communities when it comes to mental health, how taboo it is, and people don't want to talk about it. And I know that in certain cultures this is a big issue. Having lost my own best friend's cousin, who was a UCLA graduate, who was this perfect family with a lot of money, one morning he decided to jump into the 5 freeway. If you remember the incident a couple of years ago, he was suffering from severe mental health. And the family never accepted it and just said, oh, well, you know, you got a good life, you got a good education, beautiful fiance. And it was sad to watch the father at the funeral admit it finally that they should have addressed this. So I think not only talking about it, it's something we need to do, but also we need to bring up, these concerns, which are, again, in certain communities still not addressed fully. So I appreciate you being brave enough to come forward and talk about this. To Ms. Myers and Mr. Myers, and that was a wonderful presentation. I loved it. We've been having these conversations, but again, to me, it just concerns me. As a parent of a 10-year-old, my wife should not be looking for bulletproof backpacks. But I think one thing also that I also said it during the rally, my colleague can remember, is I live close to one, and I can tell you, for the last 2.5 years, you can't find parking on my street. And then there's the super one coming next to it. I think it is another good idea. They should permit it. For people who go to the stores, they cannot park on the streets, residential streets, unless they have a permit. And that could also hurt some of these businesses, because I can tell you there was a conversation about permits. And we did bring it up, and then they fought it, and the city took it away. And that concerns me because where they're located, all the streets are now, at least my street, I can tell you, it's all these individuals just shopping at these gun stores. And we can't even find parking for our own residents. So we need to get creative on this as well, but I think it's an issue that everyone is talking about. Please talk to your council. Please come to our joint meeting. It's unfortunate that 21st century we're talking about gun violence. And for people who don't know, more kids were killed in the last 2 years than active duty police officers and military personnel. Just to give you an idea, combined, how bad this, crises are. So thank you for coming forward and for the presentations.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Varma, for your advocacy on behalf of mental health. As the superintendent pointed out, that is something we're required, but thank you for making sure that it is. And also pointing out, as you did, mental health affects everyone. And truly, without going into stories, I think almost all of us have, family members at this point or close friends who have been affected by this, who have identified specific mental health issues that they've had to deal with, whether it's something as simple as, going to a therapist or having to be hospitalized or whatever. So it is very important to constantly be advocating for that. So thank you for that. Mr. Myers and Ms. Myers, thank you for your advocacy on behalf of this issue. It's obviously front of mind for a lot of us right now. I would piggyback on what the superintendent said, calling 911 is not only the quickest way, but the safest way to deal with if you see anyone with a gun in a school zone. And I agree, it doesn't make sense that they can have it. I understand people live across the street from our schools in some cases, but there's got to be a solution that we shouldn't allow people carrying guns near our schools. And we have had chances individually. We've been connecting with different council members. I understand the thinking on their positions that they have to treat businesses within their laws, their guidelines, but I've pointed out before, there's other businesses that aren't in this town, that they have found regulations that, that keep certain types of businesses out of this town. I don't understand why we have to have 14 gun shops in Burbank. Why there can't be, restrictions or new restrictions put in place to regulate those. I really think residents, and certainly we saw this when we did both last week at the walk and the vigil that was at the City Hall steps. People have had enough, and we just we need to start drawing a line somewhere, and I think we do have to continue talking to the city council about we need to find a way to change this. So thank you for your advocacy on that behalf, and I hope we will see you again, whether it's at our meetings, the city council meetings, the joint meetings, but we will continue to advocate on this issue. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, to look at my notes. So Ms. Varma, thank you so much. I had an opportunity to meet with the Student Mental Health Board a couple of times this year, and it's been really informative and helpful in figuring out some of the different ways we can meet all of the new unique mental health crises that have come up post-COVID. I appreciate you being brave enough to share your personal story. I know that takes a lot to sort of reconnect to that moment, probably every time you come to speak. I'm really happy that we're already doing this powerful thing that you're advocating for. I hope you'll come back if there's something new that we can be working on or doing, because you're obviously unbelievably well informed, and I'd love to learn more. So thank you. And especially thank you, you're coming back, right? You didn't have to come back to your alma mater, but you chose to because you care enough about it and the students in it to take time in the middle of a Thursday evening to come back. So that speaks an enormous amount to who you are. Callie, I beg of you, go to city council and share that at public comment. It's horrible to have to say the public comment you gave about school shootings was really powerful. You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous that we're in this space, but this is where we find ourselves. And I think more people need to hear from the students. More people need to hear from you, who have to figure out a way to fit this horrible reality into the rest of your life, right? So thanks to both of you. I did want to share really quickly a couple of specifics. I've been in a little bit of an unofficial working group. I don't know what that means, but I like to say it, with Councilmember Schultz. And some of the things that we've been discussing, I really want to go back and revisit, Mr. Myers, what you said about the sort of gun-free zones, even if it's signage. Like, do we have, knowing that, obviously the budgets are different, so like maybe Best Buy bought their own sign to put it up.
We do outside each of our schools
Right.
that highlights the gun-free zone, but there's the loophole with the
Right.
gun stores.
But I think that could be something very interesting to bring back to council in our joint meeting, is this loophole of like, well, if it's a gun store, of course somebody's going to be walking in a school zone with a gun. So, I mean, that's another important thing to bring up to them, for sure. A couple of other things that they've brought up is imposing sunset laws. So any gun store that closes or changes ownership, it can't become a gun store again. These are things that are just being discussed, but I want to give you a couple of specifics. At some point, impose restrictions on the number of gun stores that can exist in Burbank. I'm not sure what the number is that we have to hit. I feel like we hit it 17 gun stores ago. There's also some talk about imposing an ammunition or firearm tax so that the cost of getting a gun in Burbank is prohibitive. Now, to everybody's point, I know we all wish we had more power to to make laws that deal with it. And something we talked about at the very beginning, I don't know that you were here yet, is there were 4 gun safety laws passed through California Senate today that are wonderful. And we're lucky that we have state and federal electeds who really do fight for this. But we're dealing with this on a local level now. So coming up with ways to really communicate to our council members that this is, no pun intended, this is a life or death situation. And I want to believe, what you said, Mr. Fritner, about, people are tired of it. And I feel like they don't seem to be tired enough. I want to believe it. So I am hopeful that council will really listen and engage in an earnest conversation with us. I'm also going to sit down with the chief of police and talk with him a little bit about it. I think that there is desire to change. And I think, as with all things, not fair, the onus falls on young people to motivate that change. And you're already doing it. So you're not in it alone. You have plenty of people in this space that support you 100%. Please know, I think I speak for all of us. We take this unbelievably seriously. I know I speak for everybody in this room when I say that. It doesn't solve any problems, but I do want you to know that this is not something that we're going to stop talking about. This is something that's going to continue to be part of our dialogue until we see some real and meaningful change. So thank you to both of you. Thank you for giving me another thing to bring up to council, Mr. Myers. That's great. I'm sure they're going to love it. But please come back. And please, shoot us an email if you don't want to spend your Thursday night sitting in City Hall. We do get them. We do read them. And, we're here to connect with you and see all the different ways that we can support, but authentically, not just in word alone.
Thank you. And kind of piggybacking on Dr. Weisberg said, first of all, we have, excuse me, sir, but 2 fantastic young ladies who came up. These are not just speeches, right? This is your life. I wouldn't want to go to school today in the same way. It's a different environment. I do want to be in school. I want to learn, right? But I don't want to live with the fear. And I hear that in your speech, and for me, as you're talking, and as soon as you said it, I was in speech and debate. So I can see a tool. Having said that, when I saw that, and when I heard you say that, I didn't focus on the minutes, I focused on the seconds, right? Because when we're panicking, we don't think the same way. We don't think at the same speed, right? We try to survive. This is a different world. So on the gun store front, council needs to move. And here's the deal, is nice speeches from people up here who get elected aren't enough anymore. It's not. We have a joint meeting coming up. We hope to talk about it. I can tell you this, a council member's already not attending because a meeting in Washington, D.C. is more important. Not okay. Get home, do your job. We have kids showing up at the podium. Classrooms filled with kids die in this country. Yet DC calls. I'm done, and I'm with you. Been with you. And the council is not answering a problem. They're solving a crisis. And it's a crisis that they were a part of making by allowing the number of gun stores in this community to get to the level that it is. And you know what? If people don't have the courage to say it, I will. We expect more from our leaders, and the first responsibility is keeping them safe, especially young people who wake up every day and who just want to learn. That's been hard enough in the pandemic. They need to act, and I'm so sorry, but I'm going to ask that you keep speaking, similar to Dr. Weisberg. not because it's a good speech, but because I need you as a partner in this, because we all have to be partners if we're going to move it. It's not just about the marches on Chandler where you can get your photo taken. It's about the laws on the books that keep our kids safe. I'm a partner for that, and I know people up here are as well. But I'm tired of lip service. I'm tired of being a gun mecca for all people to come. I'm tired of being known for that in this community. I'd rather be known that we have 2 mental health schools or 2 mental health centers in our comprehensive high schools. I would rather be known for that than being an epicenter for a crisis in this county. On mental health, I am so proud of you, and I love your shirt. It's about phone numbers. It's about whatever we can get people in that moment. Right? An email, a text message, anything we can do. So what I want to do is address kind of the spirit of what you said and say we should always be looking to do more. And Senator Portantino, have you met with Senator Portantino? Have you met him? I really think, and hopefully if I can exchange some information with you afterwards, I'd really like for you to connect with him, if at all possible. One, because you are both very much advocates in suicide prevention. I'll save his story for him to tell you and his connection to the issue, but we need advocates. I've been working on mental health issues for a long time on this board. But we need the next generation of advocates to tell us how complicated this problem truly is, and how critical it is to secure access and to make access easier and more affordable. It's more critical than ever, and believe it or not, while you two are speaking on separate subjects, we all know that they are very much inherently linked. And we know that many shootings end with suicide. So we as leaders owe you action on both fronts. And you will get it from me, and I know you will get it from this dais. The biggest question is, will you get it from the other?
Thank you, my colleagues. Sorry. You know, I've been around 2 terms, 8 years, 9 years. Mental health in this district has jumped leaps and bounds above other nearby districts, and yet it's still not enough. But the conversation is continuing, and it needs to continue. We need to not be afraid to talk about mental health, and I think you coming here reminds all of us that those conversations need to continue. We need not to be afraid of that. I mean, we've seen in the news recently how many people are begging for help in ridiculous ways, but begging for help, and there's just not enough help out there for them. So we need to keep working on that. So thank you for your advocacy. Kelsey and Callie, you know, as elected officials, we all do have a responsibility, ourselves, the council, everyone. But I've thought about, at the victims' memorial at City Hall the other day, I talked about how this also has to be a community piece also. We have community members that kept Cane's from opening for a year. We have community members that sued Walmart and kept it for a good year from being built, and then they had to modify the way they do business because of citizens from Burbank. We need those citizens now. We need them, like you two came here tonight. Where is everybody else? Where's everybody else that needs to be here or needs to go to the council meeting or come to our joint meeting and say, we're all done. We don't want 14 gun stores in Burbank. We don't want 1 gun store in Burbank. Please. Otherwise, you know, you do what the folks behind Cane's did and the folks behind Walmart did. How many times do we have to send thoughts and prayers is the new thing? Action needs to happen. And it needs to not just come from the elected officials, but the entire community. I mean, this board, for example, is right there with you and wants to do all they can, but But we don't have a lot of, that's not our area. We don't get to say no businesses. We don't get to say you can't be here. That's a city thing. And I think you're right. And, you know, you said it, they need to hear, and they need to hear from everybody. I mean, this place should be packed with bodies saying, enough, we're done. Change it now. And so I'm willing. I'll talk to as many people as I can, but let's stuff that room at our joint meeting. Let's stuff that council meeting room. And your friends are off. You did a beautiful speech tonight. Let's have 20 more Callies show up and say, I'm tired of hiding under my desk. I'm tired of feeling afraid. You need to fix it. You're the adults in charge. Let's go. And so it'll help. It'll help. I hope. Anyway, thank you for coming tonight. We do have a couple of retirements. Custodian Gary Michael, thank you for your service. Kavorak Madagugul, oh, I ruined it. I practiced, I wrote it out. Madugalu. I'm so sorry, Kavor, I tried. But not good enough. So, and Jill Salem, retiring, thank you for your service. It's appreciated. It's folks like you that make Burbank Unified the special place that it is. And so thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned. Are you ready? At 10:25. Oh, in memory of Susan Foy. Sorry.